and it picks up from where it stopped before. So this is a quick overview of how you can interpret all the different state transitions I showed you earlier in the diagram into something that can be modeled in X state and state machines. The next thing you think about is, okay, cool, I've been able to model this machine correctly. How do I use it within a framework? Because, hey, I'm using a framework for my company and we are building a software in React. So after modeling your logic using the create machine function I showed earlier from XState, you can then consume this within a framework. To use this within React, XState exposes an XState React package you can install. And this package gives you access to a hook called use machine. And with this use machine hook, you can consume the machine within React, put the machine in there, and it exposes to you a state which gives you a current representation of the machine state. And a send, if you're used to reducer pattern or redux, this is very synonymous to the dispatch function. Right now I just chose to call it send, right? So we have the state and the send, which are basically the output from this use machine hook. And then the next thing we do after that is we tend to, one of the best practices for me when I create machines, I tend to create an API surface for the machine, which means I take all the things that comes from the machine and I provide a very useful object. I return an object that represents all the things I need for my UI. To help you make sense of all these different ideas that I just shared, let's take a live demo. We are in the live demo. On the right here, you can see the Vite app set up and running already, and we have the UI. And here you have the display of the current seconds formatted, and then you have all the different functions that we need for the stopwatch. We have lap, reset, start, and pause. And down here, I'm giving you a visual representation of the state of the machine, so you can see how everything changes as we go between states. So right here on the left, you see the code itself. Just as I explained earlier, we're using the use machine from XState. We're creating an API surface here. And all the API surface does on the left, I'll give you some more detail. All it does at the end of the day is sort of to return properties that you can use in your UI, such as show lap, show reset, show start button, show the pause button, and different callbacks, such as start, pause, reset, and lap. Right, and all that they do at the end of the day is just to send events to the machine using the send function. So that is exactly what is going on within this API right here. And the third thing we do then is just to render our UI. Again, note that we don't have any React specific idioms, use state, use effect in here. It's basically creating the machine logic and using the machine logic. And then we have a pure JavaScript function that just helps us really make it a little bit easy to use the machine logic in our UI, right? So there you see that here in the button that says lap, we're just sending the lap event, which basically, we're invoking the lap function, which basically sends the lap event to the machine. So this is what I mean by creating that API surface. So you just return only the things you need for the UI. And here we have see the machine can respond to a tick event, a lap event, or a pause event. This means that if you send any other event that doesn't exist in this array, the machine will not respond because the machine is no longer in that state. So the main premise behind the state machine is every state has associated events. You need to send the associated events before the machine can listen. So the very important part here is if I come back to my UI and I click start again, start has no effect on the machine because it's not part of the next event. So here we see the next event is I can click tick, which is currently what's going on, which is the event and the timer, are basically working together. So two real user interactions I can run is lap and pause. So I can either click lap here to sort of log the lap and it keeps running, recording the next lap, or I can click pause, which is pause the timer at this point in time. And as you can see, the current state is now paused, and the next events you can send is reset and start. This is the true power of state machines, in the sense that you don't have to write so complicated logic to prevent certain elements from responding to your click event. You basically send them all as events, and the machine, based on the states that it's in, would either accept the event or reject the event and not even respond. And down here in the context, you can see what the current state of the data looks like. And here you see the lap, and this is the formatted version of the lap. And you have the value and the formatted version of the value, which is what is shown here in the UI. This makes it super easy to use the stopwatch in any environment at all. And it's so easy to update these components or update the logic in there. The next thing I want to show you is how this machine, how this machine is so easy to visualize. So we're going to look at visualizing the state machine now. Now, if you have the Xstate extension, Xstate VS Code extension installed, you're going to see this little button above the create machine function, open visual editor, to actually edit the logic of this component visually. I'm not going to go into that right now. I'm going to stick to open inspector. Open inspector, when I click on open inspector, you can easily see the logic of that component visualized for you, and you can actually interact with that. So within the Xstate visualizer, it reads this entire configuration of my machine, and it shows me that, hey, this is the diagram representing the logic that you've just modeled. And here I can actually interact with it, send the start event to see that, okay, it's now in the ticking state. If I send the pause event, I'm now in the pause state. If I resume or click start again, I'm back to the ticking state. Okay, let me click pause and then let me go reset. I'm back to the idle state. Now, this makes it like super easy to take a screenshot of this, send it to your colleagues to verify that the logic of your component works correctly, and they can come back to you with updates to say, instead of going from idle to pause, can we go to ticking state, and like visually help you adjust and correct the model or your thinking of the system without even having to touch the code at all, which is super amazing. Alright, so having seen this, let's take a look at how can we easily modify the logic of this component um, without making so much changes to the logic, or just having seen that, we're going to take a look at how can we modify the logic of this component easily. So we go back to our slides again. Let's say we get like two different messages from the UX designer on our team and the tech lead or the engineering manager. The engineering manager says, come on, we should be able to reset the stopwatch while it's ticking. That means we should try to provide an event to send to the machine when it's in a ticking state to just like go back to the idle state, or just like clear everything and go back to where it started from. And then the UX designer says, how about if we start the timer after a little delay? I don't want it to start immediately. There's some actions I need to run. I think we should run at that point. So let's just start it at a little delay. Now, if you are not if you are not using state machines, you probably would have to like figure out launching the use interval hook. If you're using React, to sort of like try to modify the logic in there, go to the stopwatch component, tweak some logic in there, add some if conditions, and just get it working, and it's all done. The problem is it gets more complex as requirements changes. But if you're using a state machine, your expression or the way you feel when these logic changes come in should be like, yes, I can do it. I think I can do it. Let's get it done. So let's take a look at how we can get these changes into the state machine itself. So let's start with the tech lead. The tech lead, which is the closest person to us right now, we need to make sure it's happy with us. It says we should be able to reset the stopwatch while it's ticking. So we go back to the machine and we'll take a look at the code itself. In here, in the ticking state, you see that we don't provide an event to reset the stopwatch back to the idle state. But we do provide that event in the pause state in here. So all we need to do is to make sure that we supply this event, this reset event, in the ticking state. and you can respond. So let's do that. There you go. And now we are able to reset while the stopwatch is ticking, which is awesome. Let's try that one more time. We start the machine, now it's in a ticking state, and then we click reset. And it goes back to the idle state, clears the timer, which is awesome. Now that's done. The next thing now again is the UX designer says, can we start a timer after a little delay? And let's see how we can support this feature as well. Now before, initially, we had this start event, which means when you send the start event, we go straight to the taking state. But now the requirement is we want to go to the taking state after a specific time instead of going there immediately. So what we're going to do then is we're going to create a temporary state, and then we automatically go to the ticking state, using some auto transitions in X state. So let's define a pre-ticking state, which basically means that like the state before it starts to tick. And then we create like an after. In X state, there's a feature called after, which is timer, just creating timer events, which are automatic events based on timers, which if in JavaScript is very similar to using a set timeout. So we say like after 100 millisecond, then we can come here, copy everything from the start event and paste it here to say after 100 milliseconds, go to the ticking state and then record the lap there. So we're going to switch the start transition now, remove the actions here and just say instead of going to the ticking state, go to the pre-ticking state. Let's see how that works now. So we refresh the app, we see that we're in the idle state, we can set the start event. When I send the start event, you can see that after a little while, then it actually went to the ticking state and started to count down. Again, I refresh the app so you can see. Then if I scroll up here to also open the inspector so you can visually see what's going on, now the diagram has been modified. You see that when you click the start event, I'll zoom in a little bit. When you click the start event, it goes to this ticking state, and after 100 milliseconds, it goes to the ticking state. So this is super awesome. It means I can easily take a screenshot of this logic, share it with the UX designer, and just show them that this is done. Take a look at this diagram to see what the logic of our app or a component looks like now. These are the really cool parts of X state. Being able to model the logic of a component in a framework agnostic way, use it within a framework, whether with a framework or not, is still awesome. So it means we can run the same piece of logic in React Native and React, or Vue Native and Vue, and as needed in literally pretty much any JavaScript environment. The coolest part is that you can visualize the logic, which is super awesome. You can easily share this with people on your team to confirm if this logic is great or if we need to cater for more use cases within the machine itself. And in the future, Xstate is going to provide a way, and right now it already exists, but it's probably been fine-tuned to visually edit the logic within something that looks like this. So if I show you what that looks like right now, if I open the visual editor, it takes a little while to load, and then you see what the logic looks like. So right here, this is actually a visual editor that actually helps you edit the UI or the logic of your component visually without the need of writing code. You do everything in here, and the code is written for you automatically. And these are the benefits of using state machines within your applications. Hope you were able to learn how state machines work, why it's needed, and hopefully you get to use it in your app as well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for being here again, and I hope you learned a thing or two. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Well,
That was really good. Being the lawyer that I am, I was pretty much just saying, codes that I did not understand. But I mean, to me, it looked like gibberish. Big names.
to you they look like gibberish.
It did.
We should cancel you. Should we cancel her? Should she beg? How many people enjoyed that talk? Please, if you enjoyed that talk, give Shego another round of applause. Okay, so I guess we'll go into introducing our next keynote speaker.
Yes, and I'm actually very excited about this one because for non-technical people like us in tech that see gibberish, we have someone that's actually going to come here and talk to us about non-technical in tech, right?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting anyways. And that person, I'm sure you know her, is Odunayo Eweni. She's a Nigerian business executive and activist.
Continue clapping, please.
She's the co-founder and she's the co-founder and CEO of Piggyvest and co-founder of Feminist Coalition. I said we shouldn't do that. In 2018, Odu won the Future Awards Prize in Technology. In 2019, she was on Forbes Africa's 30 under 30 technology list. She was named as one of the 30 Quartz Africa innovators for 2019 as well. She was on Forbes Africa list of 20 wealth creators in Africa. Come on. She was nominated for the Future Africa Prize for Young Person of the Year in 2020. She was also listed on Bloomberg 50 2020, listed on Times 100 Next 2021 for her joint contribution during the EndSARS protest. And in March 2022, Odu won the Forbes Woman Africa Technology and Innovation Award.
Okay, everybody, guys, Odu talking to us about non-technical in tech. Enjoy the session.
For people like myself, and for some of you as well in the audience.
Hello, thanks for tuning into my talk. My name is Stefan Thomas. I'm the founder and CEO of Coil, and my talk is about the intersection between open source and payments. A little bit about my background. I was one of the early developers of
I don't know, but this does not look like Odu to me. So I don't know what's going on, but they're going to bring it up in a sec. But I have a quick announcement to make. I just remembered that. So I would like to, I don't know, I'm a very short person, so let me just come up so that people at the back can see me. I would like to say that we are very social people, so make sure that you keep tweeting, taking pictures, posting it, using the hashtag. And I have a very special announcement from GitHub Education for the social media posts with the most engagement. So we have 10 shirts, 8 hoodies, and 10 water bottles. So that means we have 28 things to give out to 28 people. So basically, if you want any of these things, all you need to do is post on Twitter using the hashtag, like talk about the fact that you're at OSCA Fest and all of that, and then post using the hashtag GitHub X OSCA. So that's GITHUBXOSCA. And the top 28 tweets with the highest number of likes would go home with something. Just wanted to add that. So remember that. Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, either a shirt, a hoodie, or a water bottle. So there are 28 things, and you get to win one of them. So start posting using the Oscar Fest 22 hashtag and using GitHub X Oscar. So hopefully Odun can come on stage now. The real Odun.
Morning, everyone. My name is Odunayo Eweni. I'm co-founder and CEO of Piggyvest. I'm so happy to be joining you this morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I'm really sorry that I couldn't be there physically, but I'd also like to say thank you to the organizers of the festival for letting me join virtually. It's such a pleasure to be speaking with everyone sitting out there today. And for the most part, I think that there's going to be a lot of conversation around programming and being technical. And I thought someone should do something for those of us that aren't technical, that aren't programmers. So a lot of my conversation today will be focused on being non-technical in tech, right? There is all of this focus on creating programming schools and, creating early, junior developers training boot camps, but those are good things. For my angle, though, I think that there isn't a lot of emphasis now on creating more efficient operators, creating that pipeline of junior operators, of entry-level operators, of entry-level generalists. And that happens to be where I play. And I'm hoping that for the purpose of this talk, those people are also out there in the audience. So I'll be speaking mostly to them. Now, in 2014, when I and my co-founders started our first ever company, my journey into becoming a founder, I just graduated with computer engineering. And truth be told, I was starting to pick up programming around the time that we launched and pushed CV. But it was also around that time that I started to realize I wasn't for me. And so, to the dismay of everyone around me, because I'd been like, I'm going to do this, I stopped. I decided that I wasn't going to try to learn how to code anymore. It just simply wasn't working out. And I looked around at our company and I realized that there's a bunch of things and a bunch of gaps that I could fill, right? No one was talking about it much, but it just was kind of obvious that there is more that you can do here outside of the actual building. I sucked really hard at the marketing people relations side. So I was looking for something internal. What can I do inside of the company that's going to make as much a difference as marketing and, being like the technical person building the actual platform? And I decided to combine a bunch of functions. This wasn't deliberate. And then we went back to the internet and we read about it and we gave it a name, operations. But it turns out that, there is nothing new under the sun. People have been calling these operations for a long, long time. That was my journey into operations. And there was a lot of learning, a lot of adjusting, and till now, a lot of on-the-job learning. But I think that's the most beautiful thing about being non-technical in tech, is that being technical in tech, you know that you have to keep learning all these languages. But if you're not technical, the number of things that you have to pick up just randomly, just to be efficient at your role, is almost boundless. And I think it's very interesting because that's not really spoken about. So, working in tech is great. I'm not going to lie. Regardless of all of the upheaval that we've had this week, deservedly so, I think working in tech is an incredible opportunity, whether as a founder, as an operator, as a programmer, as a team member. Tech is the future. I still believe that, and I still think that that's the way to go. And tech jobs always come with those perks that people working in traditional companies don't really have. Flexible work schedules, above average starting salary, I hope, and then opportunities for career development, because, in tech, you can start as a product manager and just kind of move your way through the company until you're where you want to be. And because of the shortage of tech talent, a lot of us are actually moving to candidates with non-technical degrees or skills to fill these vacancies. So if you're out there and, you're not interested in coding, or you can't code, or you're like me and you just decided, I'm going to do something else, right? I'm going to, pick up another skill, pick up design. Okay, design is actually still technical. I'm going to pick up product management. I'm going to pick up operations. I'm going to pick up treasury management, people operations, customer success, UX research, technical research. There is so many opportunities for you out there. So we need more people in tech with human-centered skills, whether internal facing or external facing. Nothing has been more obvious than everything that we've heard in the recent past, right? So human-centered skills are very important. And I think that a lot of us who are trying to transition into tech think that it's harder than it really is. It's not, right? A bunch of us have transferable skills, that there isn't enough emphasis on how you move those skills into tech, how you apply those skills into tech. Truth be told, working in tech isn't that different than working in a bank or an oil and gas company. The only difference is automation, right? If you're an ops person, you're at your disposal, you have all these tools that you can use to then make yourself more efficient. Now, how are you as a non-technical person supposed to find your place in tech? I'll just outline a couple of points here. The first thing, take stock of the skills you already have. What do you already know? The requirements for most jobs are very fluid and very transferable. Soft skills, experience with analytics tools. How can you apply that into the role that company X is hiring for? right? Outside of core product dev and engineering teams, there is a bunch of non-technical roles that tech companies have to fill. HR, accounting, media, marketing, sales, customer service, right? It's almost like experience in any of these areas from wherever can be transferred into those roles in tech. As a matter of fact, fintech companies probably hire their most efficient customer success people from the banks, right? So that means that if you're already a customer success person in a bank, you have an in into a fintech company. We have people working in PiggyVest, and I'm really proud of this, who started as customer success interns, who've moved up, right? Customer success intern, customer success team lead, customer success manager, right? That's one. We had someone who started as a social media intern who's now product marketing lead. These are people I am incredibly proud of, without whom we wouldn't have made any of the progress that we've made today. But those are also examples of how you can make your own way into tech with any skill you have and just kind of build it out from there. Even if the job description you're reading, or the company that you're looking at seems like they're looking for like unrealistically specific people, I think still apply. You actually, with the exception of like those, you must know, is it Vue.js, is it React, or data science or cybersecurity, you can mold yourself to fit those roles. I did it. Pisobinani has done it. Bukola has done it. Tifesholoe has done it. We've seen Eloha has done it. Eloha is one of the best generalists in the space. You can do it too. Lade, who used to work UX research at Google, was very vocal about this topic at the time. Lade is a UX researcher and one of the best in this space. She's always very insistent that people without the specific technical skills can still make it in these spaces. You may have even picked up data analytics before, maybe on the most basic level. It can be applied to a different role, right? Many non-technical jobs are hiring, they are open, and we do need people who are exactly like into those jobs, who want to learn those jobs, who understand people more than any founder or programmer or UI person can. Those roles need to be filled. Those roles are a necessity. There will be no big tech companies, no unicorns without those roles. The second thing is consider which tech roles you're already qualified for. Generally there's these soft skills that I think that people need to have, work ethic, communication, problem solving, project management, and all of those interesting skills that we always talk about. But most client-facing roles in tech kind of just require leadership skills, analytical skills, and then for the most part, you get on-the-job training, right? If you're working in SaaS companies, people will teach you how to sell their product to their clients. They have to. Onboarding orientation means that the gap between where you are and where you need to be is not that far. Like customer success manager is one of my favorite roles as an example. Founders cannot do it, right? I'm not being facetious. It's just like customer success requires like deliberate people skills that I found that several founders don't have. In the early days, Joshua, who's our CMO, handled our customer success. But as soon as we were able to, that was the first role we hired for. And now we're very happy handing it to the experts within the company and hiring more of them to take over those roles. And as we grow, we try to make sure that everyone who's working in that role is well trained and well positioned to also branch out into other parts of the company that they want to join, right? As of today, we have vacancies in several departments in the company, and we allow internal interviews to make sure that the people in those roles feel like there is a path towards a different role that's not customer success, but it's one of the easiest entry points into tech, right? And then there's also implementation specialists. And this one, I don't know that is that common, or maybe it's just me. When we started to partner with several other companies, we realized that we needed someone whose job it was to keep everyone involved in those implementation and integrations in line. And they didn't need to be technical. You need to make sure that API A and API B are well matched so that the partnership can happen. People who need to be in that role don't necessarily have to be like technical. Good customer success, knowledge of Excel, Microsoft Office, project management tools, Notion, Asana. Once you have those unlocked, you're like really well on your way. Teaching and training tools are supposed to be provided to you by the company. But if you have those unlocked, then there's nothing stopping you from being an implementation specialist, right? Product marketer. In 2016, 2017, people thought marketing was less than. There's nothing more wrong than that. It's not. If you don't sell your company, you're not going to make any money. Your company is going to die, and that's like likely eventuality. You cannot treat marketers different than you treat the rest of the company. We learned that the hard way before PiggyVest, thankfully, and have continued to grow in that path. Product marketers are key to your business because they help launch the new product, they help position the new product, they help refine your voice, and then they help figure out how to retail it. Student ambassadorship, your voice on Twitter, your voice on Instagram, your voice on LinkedIn. And, they might need to be slightly technical, but not in the specific way that you have to know coding and all of that. User research, branding strategy, campaign like setup, marketing and advertising, copywriting, user journey mapping. If you already have these skills or have interest there, then you see there is actually something for you. Writing and collaboration skills, communication. These are invaluable skills that people possess, but because we're not emphasizing it, they think that there's no place for them in tech. There is. UX researcher. My favorite UX researcher is obviously Lade. I'm always going to use her as a reference point. But one of the skills you need to develop there, design, interviewing, plotting user journey, qualitative and quantitative research, data visualization. All of these things are things that you can pick up on your own. Udacity, edX, Coursera, Nextford, they all offer mini and micro courses that you can take to brush up on these skills without ever having to write a line of code. Honestly, no offense to the programmers, but this is really, for me, focusing on people who want to work in tech, who have zero interest in programming, or maybe not zero, little interest, or you just want to do something different. That's fair, and there's space. So we've said, take stock of the skills that you already have and consider which tech roles you're already qualified for. The third thing is bring domain knowledge from another industry, right? In tech, we like to act like we're the first people to do what we're doing. The truth is we're not, right? We're building up on existing industries. There's nothing new under the sun. So, for instance, fintech, which is, all the rage right now. But in truth, a fintech company is a financial institution that's leveraging tech. If you've already worked in a bank or in an asset manager, chances are, with the right culture tweaks, you'll be able to fit into a tech company. So, to meet, let's say you've spent your entire career in, let me not use banks because there's some culture clashes, healthcare administration, and you're now transitioning into health tech. You can apply those skills into a tech that serves the healthcare industry by leveraging your understanding of the pain points that patients have. And they have those things. Constantly, one of the slowest to adapt to tech industries in Nigeria today is the health tech industry, right? So if you spent your career doing administration in health, like hospitals, hospital management, you can transition into a tech company that's doing the same thing with that wealth of knowledge. I'm not going to lie to you, we need it. When a fintech company starts to grow and starts to hire, treasury managers and compliance managers and risk managers, we're going to be hiring from the traditional industry, right? We're going to be hiring from banks, from asset managers, from finance houses. We're just going to be looking for people with the culture fit that we're looking for. But those people don't come, they're not just we're not going to build them by ourselves. We're going to poach them. We're going to hire them and lure them away with the promises of those perks I spoke about in the beginning, but they're going to be able to transfer those skills from their traditional industries into tech. So if you've already started your career working in law, or working in a bank, working in a hospital, There is space for you in tech because tech companies that are scaling, that are growing, do need those skills, right? If you're looking at a company that's, for instance, democratizing access to VC, if you've been working in an asset manager, there is space there for you because there is complexities behind in the back office that they need to understand, they need to work on, that you, who's worked in an asset management company for the entirety of your short, long, medium-term career, can help them quickly understand. We need those skills, and those skills are transferable. If you're an entry-level person and this is your interest, begin to take micro courses so that you are positioning yourself to enter into those spaces. Look at the job description. Look at who they're targeting. B2C, B2B, new industries. How can you help? Right? Where can you position yourself? What does your domain knowledge help that company do? If you can find that, then you can move into tech. And number 4, connect the dots, right? Right. How do your transferable skills and domain knowledge align with the company needs? This is literally the job interview, job application, hiring process. Reference problems that you solved in the past and connect them to the pain points of the company. When we were hiring, I like to tell the people we're hiring, we don't know everything, and that's not even trying to make them feel comfortable. It's just the truth, right? There is always going to be knowledge gaps. So when we are sitting down opposite someone we want to bring onto the team, and we're asking them, why PiggyVest? How can you bring the skills you have into PiggyVest? The answer that we're expecting from you is, how are you going to help my users further be financially free? When you're summarizing your roles in your resume, tailor your job responsibilities, that whether if you have them, to what the company needs. And if you don't have them, you need to begin to play upon what you can do to further the company's mission. I know all of these things sound cliche, but transferring from a non-technical person into tech, or being a non-technical person in tech, is almost that simple. There will always be cases where people try to downplay the roles of non-technical people in tech. Those people always learn. They always learn that the only way that a tech company progresses is by balancing. If you've held administrative roles in the past, or you want to hold an administrative role, you should emphasize your time management and organizational skills. Reference project management tools, because you are interviewing with a tech company. When tech founders or interviewers and hiring managers hear Notion and Basecamp, look, we're immediately at alert. So I encourage people to actually familiarize themselves with those tools. Airtable, these are things that make life easy. These are things that you need to be familiar with. If you're going to come and claim your space, and it's there for you, right? As a person I'm not interested in writing any lines of code, there are excellent no-code tools out there that allow you to speak authoritatively as a person who works in tech, right? Learn those, emphasize those. All skills are relevant. No knowledge gained is lost, right? There's a whole data, data segment about that. No knowledge gained, anything in will always find its way out and find expression. Non-technical skills will always find expression in tech. As a person who hasn't written a line of code in 8 years, I think that you will find your space. I think that more and more women, more and more people, more and more men who are starting companies without having the technical skills. Actually, I think a great person to actually also look at is Abdul of Mono. He has a CTO, technical co-founder, and if you never met Abdul, you wouldn't know that he wasn't the one, he was not the coder for the company. Abdul is a great salesperson. You can sell, right? He obviously understands the code and understands when he's talking to his developers. But Abdul's major skill as a CTO, as a CEO, as the head of Mono, as a person who's crafting their vision, is selling. My job as an ops person for PiggyVest, a person who doesn't write code, is making sure that the entire company is moving towards PiggyVest goals and targets for the quarter, for the half year, for the year, right? So that means that, like me, like other non-technical founders, there is space. So, customer success, product marketing, operations, right? We are always hiring operations associates because there is a lot of moving parts in the company that have nothing to do with the back office, right? If you like go over this point over and over and over, and you start to position yourself. We're in 2022, so that means that your words on Twitter also kind of contribute to how people see you. Positioning is a hell of a thing, right? Show what you know. Always showcase it. Blow your own trumpet. No matter what it is you can do, talk about it on your CV, on your cover letter, on your LinkedIn. Someone's looking. There is space always, and I'm emphasizing that there is space because there's a lot of discourse out there that's developing, and that's really good around non-technical spaces inside of tech. They're there, they exist. We have to talk about them more, we have to emphasize them more, but more people should also do that research and know that we're welcoming those people now, right? Make the connections for the founders, for the hiring managers, for the co-founders, for the operators, for the interviewers to know that your skills can be transferred into this role in their company, because it can. And so I hope that somehow this talk has been able to kind of show that that there's space for non-technical people in tech. And when I say non-technical people, understanding no-code tools is probably fairly technical. Using project management tools is probably fairly technical. But for the purpose of this conversation, not technical for me is a person who doesn't code, right? And so if you don't code, there's space for you in tech, and I hope that this helps you find it. Thank you, guys. I hope you have an enjoyable rest of the festival, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Please let's put our hands together again for Odu.
See, all these people like bats, I like to behave like SS3 Boys Club. People do not clap. People do not clap. Please can we put our hands together again? Thank you.
I don't code. You don't code. There's space for us in tech, right? I think that what Odu, said to us today actually was just very, very important, because there's that feeling that some people get, oh yeah, I don't code, so I really shouldn't, I can't get into this space. There's so much space, and I'm actually so glad that Odu has said that to everyone here. There is space for each and every one of us in the tech space, and if you think there's no space, create one for yourself. Sell yourself, blow your trumpets. Sometimes some founders don't know what they need within their team until you actually sell it to them. So yes, definitely, there is a space for non-technical people in tech. Please put your hands together again for Odu.
Love it. Okay, so I will now introduce our next speaker. The title of, no, I'm going to introduce him first and then say the title so it makes sense. So his name is Uchechukwu Obasi. Yes. So Uchechukwu is a software engineer and full-time open source contributor. He's a past cloud native, he's a past CNCF mentee at Thanos and currently serves the CNCF community as an ambassador. Sorry, I saw Thanos and I started laughing. You people should not be angry. He's the co-organizer of the CNCF Mentees Meetup and Kubernetes Community Days Africa. Today, Uche Chukwu is going to be talking about how he leveraged on the OSCA festival to advance his career as a software engineer. And the funny thing is, he was here 2 years ago in 2020, and between 2020 and 2022, a lot has changed for him, and he's coming here to share that story. So if today is your first time at a conference like this, I really want you to pay attention to what he has to say, so that maybe next year, when you come, can be giving us lecture and we'll be taking notes. So everybody, please give it up for Uchechukwu Obasi.
I've made it to. So, hi everyone. So before I start, I would want to use just a few seconds to acknowledge the organizers of this event. So a round of applause for the organizers, please. And I also want to do just a very quick poll to get a sense of, what my audience looks like. So how many of us here were at OSCA 2020, OSCA Fest 2020? Okay, how about OSCA 2022? Like, if today is your first time. Awesome, awesome. So whether you came at OSCA 2020 or you are here today, I think definitely you would relate to this talk and you will have one or two things to learn from this talk. So who am I? My name is Uche Chukwabasi, and I'll be talking today about my experience, how I leveraged on the OSCA Festival to advance my career. And yeah, I'm a full-time open source contributor. I'm a software engineer. I've had the opportunity to contribute to a wide range of different open source projects, including Thanos and Grafana. And the interesting thing is I get paid to work on open source full-time. And yeah. And I'm also like the co-organizer of Kubernetes Community Days Africa. We are the first people to, have a Kubernetes-centric or cloud-native-centric event in the entire Africa. And also, I happen to also be the first CNCF ambassador from, North African. Sorry, West Africa. Sorry. Yes, very important. West Africa. So what was life before OSCA 2020? I think it's really important for us to, when we tell stories like this, it's important for us to reflect back on where we started and, the process and where we are right now. So, dating back to 2020, 2019, I was, like a very junior developer. I was super interested in building my own agency. So basically, I was doing a lot of freelance web development. And at the time, I wanted to build my own agency because I knew what Nigeria looks like. I knew that, coming out of the university, there was no job. So I wanted to work hard enough to create my own company. And at the time, I had zero understanding of open source. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what it was called. I had little to no opportunity for career growth. All I was focused on was basically, to learn this thing and, to go to businesses and build websites for them. The interesting fact was, what I used to do then was, I would take my time, I would leave school or I would leave lectures and I would go to businesses, I would go to shops, one by one. I would be like, hey, I think it's time for you to go digital. Let me build a website for you. And you know what the deal is. Basically they will just laugh over it and tell you that you should come next day, and then you come the next day and I'll tell you to come the next week. So basically I felt like a local champion because I wasn't growing. I was working hard, but I wasn't seeing the effects, basically. And yes, when something like this happens, you tend to go through the route of SAPA-driven development. For people that don't really understand what SAPA means like hunger, So basically, you get motivated, via that route. And yeah, something happened. I went on Twitter. I think that was earlier January 2020. And I saw a tweet about Open Source Conference Africa. And at the time, I saw the amazing list of speakers that were coming. And, I took some time to reflect on my life. And I noticed that, man, I need to sit up. I've been broke for a long time now. So I went on my Google Keep, and I was basically just pouring out my thoughts. I was pained. I was just so angered. Why would I be broke? I shouldn't be broke. I write code, for Christ's sake. So I poured out all those thoughts on my Google Keep. And yeah, at the time, yes, I was so sad about it, but I was also willing to make efforts to changing my life. And yeah, like I said, I knew about the OSCA 2020, and I was determined to go for the conference. At the time, I can't even afford, like, my bus tickets, to the event. Like, I checked my account, I had nothing. So what I even did self was I had to call my dad and my mom and try to explain, the reason why this event will change my life. And they would be like, Omo, this event you've been going for years now. Waiting don't come out. So I was able to like convince them to an extent, and they were able to like just give me some little tokens to come for the event. And thanks to OSCA organizers as well, I think they had support for people coming in from different states. So a round of applause for OSCA organizers. So yeah, this was me in OSCA Festival 2020. Yeah, you could see. Yes, I know. A lot has happened. Yes, a lot has actually happened. Normal. So a lot has happened. So I came to OSCA 2020. I was hungry for success. I was super focused on learning. I was super focused on, getting access to information that could change my life. I was so keen on jotting down every single thing that was mentioned at the talk. I wasn't really interested in meeting people and all. I was just interested in basically absorbing the content and all of that. So I was highly motivated. I learned a lot about the open source. But the interesting thing was I also felt, and I know for most of you, you might have felt the same way. I was having this feeling of imposter syndrome. I was feeling like, I shouldn't be here. I mean, everyone is looking fresh. Everyone is looking good. But look at me. I don't have money. These people might find out that I'm broke. So I felt anonymous. I felt nobody knew me. I am nobody. Nobody knows me. So, and I saw how people were greeting each other. I was seeing the popular faces, of course. And they were they were greeting each other. And I was like, this person don't know me. Let me just do my thing. But at the same time, I didn't look at these things from a negative standpoint. So I actually relied on this from a place of strength. So I looked at these things and I was like, come on, this is the process. You feel me? This is the process. And, I should probably look over these things and know for sure that, I should try as much as possible to make friends, meet people, and go back and work on myself because, like I said, it's a process. So immediately, I started meeting people. I started, introducing myself. Yes, I'll meet someone and I'll tell them, hi, I'm so person. And now, I wasn't attached to any company, so I'll just end it there. I'll just tell you I'm a web developer. You get? So, but it didn't really stop me from meeting people and, getting to connect with them. So I made a lot of meaningful connections at OSCA 2020. And yeah, the interesting part, life after OSCA 2020. So I went back to home and I drew down some goals. So this is basically a screenshot. So basically this is a screenshot of my goal for 2020. I call it Vision 2020. So I went back, I was super, I was motivated. My morale was on 100. I wanted to code, eat, sleep, repeat every single day. So I went on, I did it for quite a while, and because I had learned about the different mentorship programs in open source, I applied to Google Summer of Code, I applied to Outreachy, and guess what? I was rejected, but I didn't stop. I didn't stop, so I applied to the Linux Foundation mentorship, and fortunately enough, I got accepted. I'm the first African to participate in the Linux Foundation mentorship, by the way. So basically, this was my big break into open source. I got accepted, and I think the best part was the fact that I was going to be paid, the amount of money that I've never seen in my life. I couldn't even believe in myself. But that was it. I got accepted, and I contributed to the Thanos project for 3 months plus. And yeah, immediately after I completed the project, I went on Twitter, and I tweeted about it. I was like, hey guys, this is my first major open source project, and it got merged today. Celebrate with me. And I was tagging my mentors at Thanos, and you can see the PR over there. And immediately after, I started job hunting. And because I'd learned about open source and different open source companies, I learned about this company called Grafana Labs. If you are into cloud and cloud native, you would definitely know Grafana. So they are the company behind the popular open source tool called Grafana. So I applied to Grafana Labs. It happened to be the very first company that I applied to, and fortunately enough, I got in as a software engineer. So I was working on open source full time. I was getting paid. Paid good, yeah. I need to iterate on that. So yeah, other achievements as well. I also, along the lines, because I'm so driven by the community, and I think the community has really done a lot for me. One of the ways I give back to the community is by speaking at conferences, helping organize conferences, and this was the case. I also had the opportunity to speak at KubeCon North America. So KubeCon is one of the largest developer conferences in the world. Developer conferences relating to cloud and cloud native. And I also co-organized KCD Africa, the first maiden cloud native event in Africa. Yeah, I think there was a slide that was meant to be here, but I think the last part was, I did well to secure the bag because it's very important. Yeah, so yeah, key takeaways. The story is interesting, it's inspiring, but I think it makes sense for us to tend to learn one or two things from this talk. And the first is try as much as possible to create connections. You don't really know who is sitting beside you. You don't know if the person sitting right beside you is going to change your life. So try as much as possible to meet people. Yeah. No, you don't really know. Try as much as possible to create connections. Create connections. And very important. Something very important you should also know is learn how to share openly. Learn how to share openly. It is very, very important. If I had not gone to Twitter to tweet about my experience contributing to Thanos, I might not have ended up where I am today. So try as much as possible to, share the things you know openly. Go on Twitter, go on, Reddit, talk about the things that you know. And if you can, do well to apply to different open source mentorship programs. I think the fastest way for anyone to grow in his or her career is to participate in open source mentorship programs. Because trust me, if I were to go through the traditional route of working for company to company, I don't think I would have grown to the level that I am today. So try as much as possible to find these different open source mentorship programs and apply to them. And very important, learn how to collaborate with others. Working as a software engineer doesn't stop at writing code. It involves a whole lot of collaboration, a whole lot of communication, a whole lot of, not just communication, communicating effectively. It involves a whole lot of things. So collaboration is very important. Learn how to collaborate with others. Join a community, very, very important. We are all here because of open source. And we have a lot of different communities in Nigeria. We have the HNG community. We have a lot. We have OSCA community. We have Ingressive. We have a lot of them. So join one. And please be kind to yourself. Be kind to people. Open source. When working in open source, know that you work with people. And try as much as possible to be kind to one another. And yes, reach out. Very important. Try as much as possible to reach out. If you have an issue that you need clarifications on, reach out to people, reach out to your mentors, reach out to people that you look up to. And the last but not the least, try as much as possible to pay it forward. For me, I think I'm still in the journey. I'm not there yet, but I try as much as possible to pay it forward. Even though, yes, I'm not there yet, but I try as much as possible to do the little that I can. And my final words. The expert in anything was once a beginner. And keep pushing, don't settle. Code is hard, but please don't give up. Thank you.
After this, you should have dropped the mic on the floor.
Exactly.
Please now. Abby? Yeah. Please, can you give him another round of applause?
Being the serious one that I am, I'll probably say something like, some of you here are like him, so please obviously learn from what he has said. People should clap for me.
Hey! Wow. Hey, my co-host. No jollof rice for you.
Exactly.
No jollof rice for you.
Anyways, we have someone that's going to come here, to speak to us about supercharging our careers with social currency. And he is no other than Abati Adewale, also known as Ace. Yes, exactly. Remain seated. He's also known as Ace. He's a web developer from Lagos, Nigeria. He currently works as a senior developer advocate at Code Sandbox. He's extremely passionate about open source and community building, an avid gamer, and shares his developer experience through his social media, YouTube, and websites, acekyd.com. So please, put your hands together for Adewale Abati.
Hello. I have to first apologize. I did not think the crowd would be this much for my talk, because I thought it was going to be a small space. But I'm super excited to see everyone. And I'm also glad my talk is actually following Is. Is anyone else inspired, please? Signify. Awesome. So my talk is kind of, now at least after I've seen it, probably going to piggyback on Is a little bit. So I hope you guys have also taken notes. My talk for today is supercharging your career with social currency. And while I was preparing for this talk, I realized that this is actually so wide that there's no way I'm going to finish it in 10 minutes. But I tried as much as possible. I probably spent like 4 hours trying to reduce it into something that will be 10 minutes. It's probably the most prepared I've been for a talk, which is weird because it's just 10 minutes. Yeah, but my first question is actually going to be, what is a career, right? What does it mean to have a career? And I don't know, is the mic personal? I'd just like to ask one person, just so I don't say my own thoughts, just get a little big feedback from you guys. Can anyone? Okay. Does anyone want to answer what they think a career is? Anyone? Oh boy. Okay, thank you.
What you do for a living?
What you do for a living? Okay, that's pretty spot on. My own approach to what a career is a journey. You start up somewhere and then you keep progressing, new milestones, new opportunities, new communities, new companies, new organizations, new skills. Like, it's a journey over a period of time in a particular industry or more, right? So what does it mean to supercharge this? Okay. What is social currency? I think that's the next question. When we think of currency, we think about something that we can use to exchange value. Or we think about, can I give you 100 naira or do I give you $100? You automatically perceive, even though both of them are like money, both of them are currency, you automatically perceive one value over the other, even though numerically they are both 100, right? So when you think about social currency, you realize that social currency varies across individuals, across realms, and is basically how people perceive you. So now the reason I asked the question, what do you think a career is that a lot of people would think career is very specific to what work you do, and dismiss the part that public relations, personal relationships, and everything tie into what your career is. The people you work with, the people you collaborate with, the people you are solving problems for, your users, whatever the case is, right? Personal relationships definitely transfer into what your career would look like. Oh, sorry, I forgot I defined it. Sorry. So yeah, according to Wikipedia, social currency refers to the actual and potential resources from presence in social networks, communities, including both digital and offline. And that's the key part I want to focus on today. A little bit about me. Earlier this week, I actually shared a tweet that I have spent 10 years in tech, which is actually ridiculous because I remember when I first started learning how to code, right? Thank you. Sorry? How old am I? It's actually public information. One Google search and you'll find it. So a quick summary of what my journey has been, what my career has been to this point. I started professionally interning at hotels.ng, Everyone knows hotels.ng, of course. Yes. Then I freelance for multiple startups, projects. Some of them still exist today. Some of them have packed up. Software engineer at a couple of companies, IR Freelance, Seamless HR, to name a few. And then I moved on to be a developer advocate at Ingressive, Flutterwave, and now Code Sandbox. The rest is story. So the reason I'm summarizing this is that I want to give a point. In all of these jobs, of course, I sent a tweet out to intern@hotels.ng, but for all of my other projects and everything, I have only ever applied to one company that I eventually worked for. I've applied to other companies, so don't get me wrong, like apply, not get it, and other stuff. But for the companies I actually worked for, Code Sandbox, which is my current employer, is the only one I actually applied for right off the bat and then went through the interview. Every other single one, either saw my GitHub profile or got referred by somebody else or saw my work somewhere like, oh, can you do this for us? Or, do you get what I'm trying to say with this like explanation? Is I'm either initially contacted because they had seen my work somewhere or someone else had referred like, oh, they know this person, they'll probably be able to do it. All of them, except my first internship and my current job. And I think that is wild, right? And the only reason I can explain that, or the only explanation I can give to that, is social currency. And when we think about social currency, we think about, oh, social media. That's default, right? Social media. Oh, people are loud on Twitter, they're loud on YouTube, they make videos, blah, blah, blah. Some people focus on just talking, where is the work they are doing, blah, blah, blah. That's digital. But the part that we rarely ever think about is the offline one. Because let's think about it. I give like 10 talks a year, right? But nobody here has worked with me. And then you're in a room, and someone's like, oh, who is that? Do you know anybody that builds web applications, for example? You might say, oh, yes, I've seen this guy online, right? And then they ask, have you worked with him before? No. Have you seen his work? No. Okay, let's include him because of the currency he actually has publicly, but no one has worked with this person. No one has seen this person's work, right? And that starts to translate that even though the public currency that you have can get you into some doors, at the end of the day, the offline interactions would also be the one that will keep you there. Does that make sense? Okay. So explain the public place. This works basically like mass media. I'm talking here, a lot of people probably hear my name for the first time. They have no idea what I do, right? But they've heard my name. If they see somewhere else, they're like, oh, this person spoke at OSCA, right? But they don't know what I do, but they've heard my name. So if they see somewhere else, they can connect the dots, right? That's how mass media works. I just reach a ton of people all at once. Works on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, whatever the case. But then, like I said, yeah, a lot of people can be reached, but a lesser percentage can show interest. Probably, I don't know how many percentage of people are just pressing their phone and not even listening to me, which is fine, right? Because it works that way. But then, even fewer would then go out of here to say, oh, I have worked with this person before. I can collaborate with this person. I can recommend this person. I don't know if Prosper is here, but he wrote an article recently that said, who is speaking for you, right? So the only people that can confidently be their chairs to speak for me are people that referred me, or people I had worked with, or had seen my work, even if I've not had any connections with them. But they had seen my work, I appreciated the quality of it, and said, okay, I can recommend this thing for you, while also maintaining my own integrity. I don't know how much time I have, so I'm just going to push through. So how does the private space work? This one leverages on direct interaction that a lot of people tend to overlook. There are a couple of people that are founders in the Lagos, let me put it that way, Nigerian startup ecosystem, that I feel like if I need a job today, I can just go to meet them if there's an opening and I'll get the job. Simply because, not clout, simply because I have worked with them before and they know what I can do, right? It's a direct interaction, it's a direct collaboration, a direct experience where personal experiences and the word of mouth go a long way. There are a lot of people here that were once Ingressive Campus ambassadors. Is anyone here Ingressive Campus ambassador? Amazing. So the first time I got that job, I got referred by someone I freelanced to like 2-3 years before I got that job. And that job was also a life changer for me. I don't know if what I'm trying to say here makes sense. But because I worked with that person was able to directly see my work, my values, so to speak. They were able to refer me to another place that I can also provide additional value. So even though you might reach lesser people offline in terms of direct collaborations, these interactions tend to have a larger impact than just mass media. But I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. I'm saying they work together, and you should not just say your own social currency is tied to the things you do on Twitter or making noise. The people you work with in your office today, if they go to another bigger company, can they recommend you? Are you good enough for them to recommend? Can they get you to advance your career because they have worked with you before? That social currency, even if you're not a public person, is what this entire talk wants you to recognize and work on. Like, that's basically what I want you to get. The people you are working with today, can they speak for you? Are you doing good work, or are you just faffing? Like, you're paying me like chicken change, so I'm just going to do chicken change. I'm not saying, I mean, there was recently a talk about toxic bosses. I'm not saying you should overwork or do more than yourself. But for the work that you are doing yourself, are you proud of your work? That is it. That's my mantra. I do work that I'm proud of. If I'm not comfortable, I bounce. Do you get me? So bottom line is basically, in respect to your career, social currency is going to boil down to how people perceive the work you do. On Twitter, social media, blah, 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 they see it, they perceive it a certain way, but they don't have a direct interaction with it. That has its own value, because it might get you some places that you might not be able to get to without that visibility, but it's still going to have, it's still going to carry a lot of weight when it comes to who has directly worked with you and who can speak proudly and confidently about you. So, once again, the summary is that regardless if you're a public person, you're a private person, social currency matters to you. Don't just dismiss it like, oh, is it just tied to making noise or whatever? Do you guys get what I'm trying to say? Are you guys following? Thank you. So yeah, summary again. Public or private, the quality of the work you put in yields returns that you actually desire. So if you're going to walk away with anything today, whether you share your stuff on social media like you did, or whether you do good work in your space, everybody's going to grow at their own particular rate. But you can know that anywhere you go to today, you are proud of the work you've done in the past. And if anyone asks to recommend you, you're confident it's going to be a positive review that will impact your career positively. And just to be cheesy, that's going to supercharge your career. So, thank you very much. I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Ace. That was really amazing. I'm actually glad that the last two speakers have been speaking to us about just growing ourselves individually. I think that that's actually a great thing. And that's why we're here at OSCA, no? Guys, come on. Is that why we're here? We're here to learn, to grow, just develop ourselves, grow that career, and it's amazing. So I'm going to be introducing three amazing ladies that will be coming up here to speak to us about Outreachy, which is internships in open source. So pretty much institutional bias in tech poses a danger to open source communities. Outreachy is a paid remote internship that gives people from underrepresented groups an opportunity to contribute to open source projects. And they're going to speak to us about that. So please, let's put our hands together for Ramot Afolabi, Love Otudo, and Olushola Odunkelu.
Hi everyone. Hello. Okay, firstly I'd like to give a big shout out to the OSCA team. Thank you so much for an amazing festival so far. Okay. All right, so today we're going to be talking on Outreachy internships in open source. A quick intro. Okay, I'm Love Otudo. I'm an Android developer. I'm a technical writer, and I am an Outreachy alum and mentor.
Hi everyone, my name is Ramat Afolabi. I'm a product manager and computer instructor. Then I love volunteering.
Hi everyone, I am Olushola. I'm a software developer, Outreachy alum, and I love making digital arts.
All right. Yesterday, Ruth had a session where she talked about creating your first open source project, and we were having lots of questions on how can I contribute to open source for the first time as a data scientist. This session is for you. So we're going to be talking about open source internships. Open source internships is a great way of learning and building your software engineering career from the comfort of your home. It focuses on contributing to open source. Okay. So these are the benefits of open source internships. You get to be a part of a live community. You get to have the opportunity to collaborate with other engineers, even senior engineers. You get to share your knowledge, learn a lot more, and therefore you get to hone your skills. Okay, and also it gives you the opportunity and that satisfaction that you're part of something that's out there for everyone to see. And okay, we have a lot of open source internships we have a lot of paid internships in open source. Paid internships actually give a particular amount of stipends to their interns during their internship. Okay, we have the MLH Fellowship. We have Ruby Me, which is for early career developers in Ruby. We have Outreachy, which is the highlight of this conversation. Summer of Bitcoin, the Linux Foundation, Google Summer of Code, Season of Dogs, Rails Girls Summer of Code. There are links to all these internships in the slide, the resources section. And then we have other internships too, just in case you don't get the opportunity to contribute or you don't get accepted into these paid internship programs. You can also apply to other internship programs. It's still the same opportunity to learn. Some of them is the Millennium Fellowship, Free Software Foundation, Season of KDE, and P Club Summer of Code. So now, to our talk, the main highlight, Outreachy. So what is Outreachy? Well, Outreachy is for anyone who faces systematic bias and discrimination in the technical industry where they live in. So Outreachy provides internship opportunities to anyone that faces discrimination or are affected by systematic bias, or anyone that are underrepresented in their technical industry where they live in. Outreachy provides internships in programming, research, user experience, documentation, graphics design, data science, marketing, and all. Okay. Yesterday, someone was asking how she can contribute to open source as a data scientist. Outreachy is for you. Outreachy internships are paid. Our previous speaker, I think the speaker before this other one was talking about making good cash. Okay, so Outreachy pays $7,000 total to their interns. So these payments could come in 2 or 3 batches during the internship period, and the program is actually remote, so both mentors and interns can both work remotely from wherever they are in the world. And the internships are 3 months long. They run from May to August and December to March. Applications for the May to August is actually closed, so you should look out for December to March. Now, Shola is going to be taking us on who can participate in Outreachy. Thank you, Shola.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so Love has introduced Outreachy and what it is about. Now, who can participate? How can you participate? The first thing to look out for is your age. I'm sure most of us here are above 18 years old, so I'm sure most of us can participate. So to participate in Outreachy, you must be 18 years and above. Another thing is availability to work. Outreachy requires that you give in 30 hours a week to be able to contribute to whatever project you are working on. And every feedback form you fill will actually request to know whether you're actually giving in your 30 hours or not. So it's not something you can by play. Another qualification is if you've not participated in Outreach Program for Women or GSOC, that's Google Summer of Code, then what if you have a job, you applied without having a job, then suddenly after application you get a job, what should you do? Well, you should inform Outreach organizers to tell them, oh, my time commitment has changed and I have a job. So they would put that into consideration and know whether to pick you or not. Another thing is, if you have a part-time job or a contracting job, yes, you can apply for Outreachy and you'll be considered. But if you have a full-time job and you think, oh, I'll take a leave towards the period Outreachy is going on and apply for Outreachy, no, you will not be considered. You must either be doing a part-time job or a contracting job. Then another thing is university students. Some of us are students and we want to apply for Outreachy. Then what happens to us then? Well, if we must submit our school calendar and we must have 42 consecutive days free. Yeah. 42. Okay. Yeah? Oh, there's also strike. Oh, I don't know. I'm not an Outreachy organizer, so I can't talk for that. But I know according to our teaching requirements, you must have 42 consecutive days free before you, I think even with the exams being done, yes, that they will consider you. And right, another thing is they consider your, how do I put it, your school calendar, not your course load. Some courses are heavier than others. Outreachy do not care about the course you are taking. They consider your school calendar. If your school calendar is, if it allows you, yeah. Then experience. Yeah, you might wonder, do I have an experience? Can I apply for Outreachy? I'm new to programming and all that. Like Odun said earlier, that's the CEO of, co-founder of PiggyVest. She said there are some skills that are non-technical skills in tech. Yeah, Outreachy makes room for that too. So you could apply anyway. During the contribution stage, you see projects. So you'll be able to decide, oh, this project, can I work on it or not? Then you know whether you can put your skill to good use or not. And even if you cannot work on that particular, that period, you could still contribute, then pick up skills you can use to reapply again. Because Outreachy will pick if you reapply again and you have the skill. Then lastly, I was supposed to mention to start with, 3% of people can apply for Outreachy. You can either apply as an intern, which I mentioned your qualifications earlier for you to apply, or you could apply as an open source community. So if you have open source communities here that are interested in mentoring Outreachy interns, well, Outreachy would consider that you just have to submit your project to them. Then they will look into it. Then if you're an individual looking to mentor too, yes, you can just talk to open source communities that you know, suggest projects to them. Then once Outreachy approves that project, you'll be allowed to mentor other people that are coming into Outreachy. That's the interns coming in. Yeah. So the next thing you would wonder is what are the application phases like? Ramot would take up that. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so thank you. So for the application process, we have 2 phases. And the first one is initial application. Like this is your very first step to secure the bag, just the way Usheshiko did. So there are 2 main aspects of it that are very, very major. Is the essay part. You have to provide questions to 5 different, you have to provide answer to 5 different questions for them to understand how you are part of an underrepresented group in the tech industry of your country. Please, when answering these questions, do not generalize. Don't speak for everybody. Speak for yourself. Tell your story. Who are you? Something that you're seeing as a problem, as a challenge, like are you a school start certificate holder? You know, this is Nigeria. Are you a female? How many female do we have in the tech industry? You talk about yourself. Are you a Muslim? What are the difficulties you're going to see? Like myself, when I applied, I said I'm a secondary certificate holder. And you know, we live in a country where we so much cherish degree, certificates, and all that. So this is going to be a major challenge for me. And the next one is the availability. As you so much care about your availability, can you sacrifice at least 30 hours per week during the internship? Because seriously, you cannot juggle the internship with some other works or anything. It's very, very tasky and challenging. Now, the next phase is the contribution phase. You have been accepted into the contribution phase. Please immediately receive that email. Go to the project page. You are going to see all the projects available and the skills required. But before you do this, know yourself and know what you want. Are you a software developer? Are you a product manager? Are you an event manager? Know what you want. Do you just complete a training or a course? You know, you are trying to utilize this knowledge and the skills. So then you go there, you pick the project that has the skills, that needs the skills that you have or the skills that you want to acquire. So please, especially for those who are Python developer, you might see a lot of projects that is requiring for Python skills. Please don't try to pick more than 2 projects. And when you pick 2 projects, don't try to balance it like contributing the same effort and time to both projects. Contribute to more than the other. And the next thing there is to join the chat channel. When you click the project details, there will be the link to join the chat channel. Each project has their chat channel for all potential Outreachy interns. You join there, you introduce yourself, you tell them why you are here. And also while you are there, please do not try to be competitive. Help others as well. You are not there although it's very, very challenging. I guess a lot of people can be, people about 200, 100 plus might be contributing on one project and they can only pick only one person. So, but despite that, do not be competitive. Try to help others. And another thing is the contribution itself. When making contribution, don't go for something very, very big or challenging. It can be as simple as correcting a typo. It can be as simple as changing the nav bar, depending on your experience. Don't go for something that will make you to spend 10 days on YouTube doing research or something. Just be consistent. The number of contributions really matters. And the next thing is your mentor. While you are doing all these things, introduce yourself to your mentor. I'm here just for them to know that you are here. And the next thing is recording your contribution. This is very, very important. You may be carried away with the contribution, and if you don't record any contribution, they see it as if you did not, even though you have contributed, your PR has been merged or your issue has been accepted. You need to record it. The links to that issue, the link to the PR, the date, the details, and everything, it has to be recorded. And now the next thing is the project timeline. Why doing all this contribution is that just like preamble. You have not even started like contributing as well to the main project. So now they want to know if you have understanding of the project to be working on during the internship. So you need to break down the project into weekly tasks. What are you going to do on the first week, the second week, throughout the internship? You need to break it down like that. And the next part of it is the submission date. So you need to submit this application or the contributions and the project. Please do that at least a day before. Do not wait for the final day because to avoid rushing and forgetting something. Take your time and do it. And the last thing there is, now the contribution has ended. You feel relaxed now, I'm free. No, you are not free. You keep on contributing till the day you'll be accepted. Like, I actually contributed to the day I got the email, like being accepted as an intern. So I think outreach is for everyone. I believe that we all have our story, our unique story. So irrespective of who you are, you can apply as an outreach intern. I wish you the best. Thank you.
Ladies, actually, no. Do we have any questions, guys? I believe someone should have a question about how to, get on Outreachy. Anyone?
Please, I'm interested in Linux, the Linux Foundation. So, is there an internship, a paid internship for Linux? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, it was in the paid internship slide.
Oh yeah, I saw
Yeah.
it. Okay.
So it's a paid internship.
Okay. You gave much detail to Outreachy.
Yes.
I understand you are into.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other question? Maybe just one more. Yeah, pass it forward, please.
Okay, thank you. Some people are finding it difficult because of some certain things. The age bracket. They'll give you a stipulated age, 18 to.
No. There is no limit. It's just 18 and above.
18 and above.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm not sure if you mentioned, but how much do they pay people who participate in outreach?
Okay, yeah, I said it. They pay $7,000.
Like, how much is that in naira?
With the current rate, it should be a little bit above 4 million. Yeah. All right, thank you.
I feel like Nigerians bond over one thing. Do we know what that is? What Nigerians bond over? Guys, do we know what Nigerians bond over the most? Especially Nigerian youths. Securing that bag. Because someone asked the question and we just had 7K. The room is, everybody is trying to talk to the next person. This, that. Anyways, it's good, it's good. If you people secure the bag, please let me know so I will join you people too. So guys, I have a few announcements to make before we move forward. First things first, please, during the duration of the event, can we just remain seated and learn? We can't have people at the back. There's going to be time for that, definitely. But we need everything to be coordinated, and we need you guys to be cooperative as well. And we would appreciate it if you do not go to the booth. You can see my boss. He said, "What? Allow me to finish talking." She's already calling me Karen. Karen. Okay, yes, ma. Yes. Also, I'm sure that some of you are aware that we have swags. Yeah? I'll be buying swag, so please buy. If you don't want it for yourself, buy for someone, that didn't come for the first. There are people on Twitter that are waiting that they didn't come for the first. So if you can get it for someone else, that's definitely great. In the meantime, while we get things sorted on our end, I probably didn't make a proper introduction when I started. My name is Karen Chukwu. Aside from being the Good Cop host for today, I am also the founder and managing partner of Catwig and Dale. We're a law firm that services startups and tech-based businesses. We will pull that up soon. But the reason why I'm talking about this is because thanks to OSCA, we're going to be giving a month free of legal support to 2 idea/early stage startups. People should clap. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not. Oh my! Don't worry. We're about to take over. So if you're a founder here, CTO, COO, or member of the management team, in any startup that has your MVP ready, probably hasn't raised, and you need legal support, definitely that's the link on there, bit.ly/Catwig OSCA. Again, thanks to OSCA, we're doing this. So just go on it. It's the one pager. Answer the questions correctly. We will be selecting the startups that obviously get the opportunity, and we will make announcements tomorrow, which will actually be the last day of the fest. And we actually look forward to working with these startups. It's pretty much our way of, giving back to the community and just showing that we're here for you guys. So yes, that's us. If you have any questions, I will be very happy to answer them, as long as it will just take like 2 minutes, because if you come and ask me about one, legal matter that I probably have to sit down to explain to you, you pay for my time, straight up. Probably use the Abeg app for it. But no, that's a joke. Feel free to ask me questions, and we're always happy to help. And one of the partners will be attending tomorrow's fest and is also, happy to answer questions as well. But in the meantime, please do go on the Google form and fill that out, because the portal will close tomorrow at noon, so that we're able to choose the 2 startups that we will be going ahead with, and so we can announce the winners as well. So someone is saying to me to tell a joke. I'm a lawyer, for Christ's sake. We don't tell jokes. We're as boring as they come. Actually, don't mind me. I'm not boring. Okay, actually, maybe I am. So I just want to find out from you guys, so far, for the people that have attended yesterday and today, what can you say about your experience so far from the OSCA Fest? Just 1 or 2 people from the audience and someone. No one? Oh yeah, we have someone. Is that CEO I'm seeing there? Wow.
So, yeah. quick one. I know they use Jollof Play. Yeah. So yesterday, it has been good. Right? It has been good. I know they use Jollof Play. That's the thing.
No African girls.
It has been great. The speakers have been amazing. And I think the directions this year was about, still drawing more people into open source. And then I think we need to sort of amplify that mainstream in this part of the world. And I'm glad that the organizers, put that into consideration in selecting all of the speakers for this session. So yeah, good one.
Great. So if you notice, thank you so much. What's your name?
I'm Favor Chukwuedo. Favor Chukwuedo.
Chukwuedo. Do you know what I'm asking, guys? Social currency. Yeah, you already spoke about it.
I lead programs for Find Worker and community engagement We help, provide tech talent, to organizations. And I also have an edtech startup. It's called DigiLens. We are providing quality education to students in low-income communities. You don't need a smartphone. You only need your Palasa, your basic feature phone, to access it. So you can check us out at digilens.ng, and you can check Find Worker if you're a tech talent and you are looking out for opportunities.
Besides social currency, my guy took over OSCA first.
Okay, everyone. I have a quick announcement to make. But before I do that,
oh, okay.
so there was someone that asked a question. I don't know if you can signify so that you could ask that question again.
Line up.
You don't want to ask. Oh, it's
What
okay.
question?
It's fine. No problem.
What
I won't-
question?
I don't. Anyway, I have some announcements to make about all our sponsors at the back. But first of all, please just, applaud them, because if they did not drop money, you will not be here. See, Mr. Chukwuedo, that rice you want to eat, if sponsors do not drop money, you follow see that rice. So please, everybody, just clap for them again. Thank you. So during our breaks, we will be able to, do whatever you want, network during that period, grab food, have conversations at the booth, meet the different sponsors. They have like a ton of stuff in the back for you. So when that time comes, you can always go to the back. And I'm going to be telling you some of the things that they have, just so that you are aware. But before I do that, I hope you are tweeting GitHub X OSCA. Yeah. I hope you are doing that. I did not really hear the yeah. Well, I will not strike, oh. I will just drop this mic and be going home.
What? You don't have internet as big as you are.
Okay. So at the back there, we have GitHub. GitHub has a lot of swag, but then they're also giving people access to student developer packs to get free programming resources. And during the break, there's going to be a raffle for sweatshirts and t-shirts as well. So, go check them out when that time comes. Go to GitHub to get your student developer packs and to get some swag. Fincra, I don't know how many people here know Fincra. If you know Fincra, please just raise your hand. Okay, so you are not many, which is great. They are at the back. Go and learn about them so that maybe you can go and start your own fintech startup and join the 1 million fintech startups that exist in Nigeria. Fincra has APIs that help fintechs optimize their payments. So they have like a ton of swag in the back as well, up for grabs for whoever follows all their social media. So if you follow all their social media and you go to the back, you have a chance to get free swag. But then don't go late, because following is just one click of a button. So by the time you get there now, maybe after like 20 people have gone, sorry, shares has finished, don't be angry. So remember that Postman has a ton of swag as well there in the back. And if you want to learn about anything APIs, go to their booth and have a conversation with them. Coil is also giving a 6 months of Coil membership and a $10 in tip credits. So if you are someone, and there's also swag, there's always swag. So if you are someone that, cares about web monetization and tools, open technologies like Coil are making it happen. What's the problem? Are you chasing me away? Wow. Open technologies like Coil are making that happen. So, yeah, like I said, they're giving like a 6 months membership for free, and they also have, swag and the $10 in tip credits. There's a ton of swag at the Source Graph booth over there, so get that if you're interested. Polygon has swag for you as well. You can go to the Google booth and learn about Google open source and also get free swag. The art company also has a ton of swag for you in the back. And there's also Paystack there. They have a programmable POS demo. You might want to check that out. It's really cool. And they also have a ton of swag for you. And the Cloud Native Computing Foundation as well, CNCF in the back, they also have swag. For you, I've been saying swag too many times, but the point is, don't go and shakari last when the break time comes and everybody's moving to the back. So, yeah, just wanted to make that announcement as well. And it's time to introduce our next speaker, our next keynote speaker. Our next keynote speaker came all the way from the abroad. Abroad is fun. People should be clapping. Yeah. So his name is Tejas Kumar. Came all the way from the abroad. I mean, I'm not saying the abroad. I mean, like, if you are someone that is very active on social media, you will know how much Tejas really cares for the developer community and how much he also really loves us, we Nigerians, Africans, and stuff like that. So there's also that. He works at, I can't pronounce it, Zatabase. And the title of his talk is Documentation as a Service, How We're Changing the Game at Zata. So I'm going to leave it to my co-host to do a proper introduction of our, permit me to be Igbo, Obodo Igbo speaker.
I think you've done it all. You've done it all. I mean, but like, Tejas Kumar has been writing code since age 8. And today, yes, since 8. Some of us were playing, what were we even playing that year? And today leads Zata's developer relations efforts, educating, equipping, and empowering developers across the world about industry-leading best practices. So guys, I present to you.
OSCA Fest 22! I have a question for you. You ready? Yeah. How you doing? I've spent so much time with all of you. I've eaten the food. I've talked to the people, and let me tell you, it is an honor and a privilege to be here with you today. We'll get into it. Dave, what an awesome introduction. Thank you. I will also introduce myself. But before we move forward, I need to acknowledge Chi and his tech team back here for making all of this possible. Can we give them a round of applause? Oh my God. They are the unsung heroes of this event. All right, let's get into it. I want to start with a question. Because look, I came here from Germany through London to Lagos. That is a long, thank you. That is a long journey. How many of you have had long journeys? It's long, exactly. You know how that is? You know how that is? And your journey may not even be geographic, right? It might be an interpersonal journey. It might be a career journey. A journey is a journey. So with any journey, I asked myself the question, and I want to present the question to you as well. Why are you here? Why am I here? Why did I fly from Germany to London to Lagos? Why? I've been thinking about this a lot. I feel like we need to understand the motivation behind the things we do, especially if it's getting on a plane and hanging out in a different country and so on. So why? And the best answer that I could come up with is an answer in 2 parts. Part number 1 is I'm here to be inspired. And let me tell you, like from the moment I landed in the airport and I saw the African vibes of the immigration officers, from the moment I went to the hotel and ate jollof rice and what is it? Goat stew. Oh my God, come on. And then something beautiful happened. I met all of you. People I've spoken to on Twitter, people I've mentored, people I've bought Udemy courses for. I've met you, I've heard your stories face to face, eye level as my equal. What an amazing opportunity. So let me tell you, Lagos, I am inspired to be here. You have inspired me in ways you cannot imagine, and when I leave here, I will leave a much more inspired and healthier person than when I came. Let me tell you. So that's part one. Part two, I'm here to be inspired, but I'm here also to inspire. I'm hoping that in this 20, 25 minutes, 30, whatever we have, maybe 45, I'm hoping to be able to share some things with you that maybe inspire you. Inspire you in the DevRel space specifically, inspire you with documentation and so on. So with that, is that okay? Can we get into that? Yeah. Excellent. An introduction, I'm Tejas. As they've said, I won't say too much. I tell this to white people, you pronounce it like contagious. To be fair, I don't know what's the African pronunciation here? Someone told me. Tejas. I also, by the way, have African names, so some call me Olakule, Ogenegare, my Igbo name, Chebuzo, right? Anyway, I'm the Director of Developer Relations at Zata. This is called a Zata Fly. My friend Anjana, who's here, named it. And this is our logo. What we do is we make data really easy. We make databases and search engines and analytics very accessible to teams. But I'm not here to talk to you about that today. I'm here to sell you something. This is not a vendor talk, Ben, but it's more of an inspiration of how we're building things, how we approach DevRel, how we approach building what we want to be the best product in the tech industry. Okay, so that's what this talk is about. The talk specifically is about documentation as a service. Documentation as a service. And what does that mean? Well, in this capitalist society, right, we think as a service, so backend as a service, database as a service. We think this as a service is some type of monthly subscription that someone's trying to sell you. I'm not here to sell you any monthly subscription. I'm talking about documentation not as a monthly service you pay for, but as a service to your users. Are you tracking with that? It's an act of service to help your community grow. Okay? So documentation as a service. And what we'll look at is how we're doing it at Zata. So if we talk about motivation, where does this even come from? We believe at Zata, I believe personally, that documentation is key to good developer experience. Can we have some applause? If you believe that. If you believe that. Exactly. And this is really important for the early stage startups, but it's equally important for the bigger companies. You see, because for us at Zata, we're creating something. We're bringing a product into the market that doesn't even exist. So can you imagine someone uses it as a beta, they have questions. What do? Google. But there's nothing. What do? Stack Overflow. But there's nothing. So they're going to be confused, they're going to be lost, and we want to care for them. We want to serve them. So we created documentation with that motive. And I really believe developer experience starts with an amazing README and better documentation. So, yeah, you can clap for that if you want. So, to understand how to do docs right, what we're doing, what I've done is we've looked at docs that are not very good. We've looked at docs that struggle. So I travel a lot, I speak to a lot of people, I've spoken to a lot of you, and so I kind of just ask questions. What is the worst documentation you've ever seen, right? And I've got some answers, and I looked at docs that maybe people don't like. And based on this, I was able to identify common problems that documentation has in developer communities that kind of hold people back from using products. And these are, docs are often, and this is the case, this is not every set of documentation, right? This is documentation that people have problems with. I should say problematic docs are often. There wasn't enough space. Anyway, docs are often usually slow, right? So can you imagine a scenario? You're using a product, it's difficult, you have a bug, but you don't know what it means. And then you go to Google, right? You're like, okay, you paste the error message, and then you get a link to the doc site. You click it, and what do you see? Spinners! Like something is spinning for like half an hour, and you don't get your answer. Can you imagine? And then you have to wait like 5 minutes before you actually read the docs. That is a huge problem. We want docs to be fast. We believe that the fastest somebody can identify and fix a problem, the happier they'll be, the better we'll serve them. So the documentation sites that are often problematic are documentation sites that tend to be slow. Number two, I lost the connection to my clicker. I will just awkwardly go over here, okay? Docs are often, where can I put this now? Docs are often, number two, outdated. What does this mean? Like, have you been in an early stage startup? Like, usually the engineering teams are eager, which is a great thing. You build fast, you ship fast, but then the docs kind of get forgotten about. And you ship documentation with to do. or TBD, right? And then people start using your feature, they go to the docs and they find nothing. They get frustrated, understandably. This isn't serving them. So we find that docs often can be problematic when they're outdated. How can we make this problem go away? That's what we'll talk about. Number 3, docs are often what we're calling impact opaque. And that means you don't really understand if they're useful. Like I've seen a lot of documentation where it's written by a very smart engineer. The problem with that is I'm not very smart. And so I'll see words that I don't understand, and at the end, if I don't really understand something, I'm too ashamed. I have imposter syndrome. Anyone else have imposter syndrome? I'm too ashamed to open a GitHub issue and be like, I don't know this, can you? Because I'm scared. As a person of color in tech, I'm scared that some guy's going to be like, well, you don't know that? How could you? Right? So the worst docs I've seen, they don't account for this. They don't account for the psychological safety of people wanting to ask for clarification, asking for help. You don't really know if the impact is valuable. So how can we fix it? So at Zada, we're aware of this. We're trying to do better. And so I can tell you today that we have docs, and to the best of our ability, our docs they're fast. They're quite fast. And don't take my word for it. We'll have demos. We'll have everything. Chi and his team have worked really hard to kind of set us up for success here. So we'll look at some stuff. Number 2, our docs we call them evergreen. They're constantly up to date. Why? Because we don't really intentionally write them. A lot of them, majority of them, I would say, is generated from source code. And we look at that too. And then number 3, impactful. We've taken a lot of effort to measure the impact of our docs and allow people to say, hey, that doesn't make any sense. You use the word CMS. What is I don't know what CMS is. So we make it accessible for people to give us feedback and therefore measure the impact. So if I say it's good, it's because people tell us, right? It's not because I have a giant ego, which also may be the case. So how are we doing this? Let's talk about each of these right now. How are our docs fast? There's technical things we're going to talk about, but before I do that, let me just prove to you how fast. Would you like to see how fast they are? So this is raw mode here, right? And we'll go to the browser. This is our docs, docs.zada.io. You're welcome to check it out. But what I want to do is I want to use Lighthouse. How many of you have heard of or used Lighthouse? Right, not a lot. So Lighthouse is a thing built into your browser that will measure performance and give you a score, 0 to 100. 0 means it's bad, it's slow, it's not accessible. 100 means it's actually extremely good. No room for improvement, or maybe very little, okay? So if we take this in Lighthouse, this is what Lighthouse looks like in your DevTools, and you click Generate Report, and you get a little report here. So our Lighthouse score on this site is 95. 95. Thank you. Sometimes it's 100, depending on the network. To be fair, Lighthouse may not be the best, but it's definitely a good metric, but you'd probably want to factor out like your network when doing tests like this, right? So you'd probably use something in the cloud. Either way, a simple example, but this is how we're approaching docs. And so the question you might be having now is, how is it fast? What did I do? What's the secret sauce? Let's talk about the technical details. And to do that, we'll look at source code. So this is the repo on GitHub. Oh, sorry, not on GitHub, on VS Code. Microsoft, all the same. Anyway, it's a Next.js application. Next.js, in my opinion, I heard a woo. Next.js is the best way to build React apps for me personally. Like, I absolutely love Next.js. And let's look at how Next.js helps us make this fast. By the way, I'm not trying to sell you Next.js. It's free and open source. I just like it, okay? So how's this repo structured? We have a directory here called content. And in content, there's some folders and files. Content, concepts, branches, for example. This is just Markdown. It's text with a little bit of formatting, okay? Each file here maps directly to a path in the browser's address bar, to a URL. So concepts, branches. So this, do you see how fast that loaded, by the way? So /concept/branches is in my address bar. And it's literally this file here from the file system. We just wrap some HTML around it and ship it. This way, anybody can write our docs. They just need to know Markdown. They don't need to know anything else. They don't need to know a CMS or anything. It's the most accessible way for technical people or developers, because Markdown is, I would say, some type of prerequisite. So that is one way. And then we have a page here called slug.tsx. For those of you who know TypeScript, what we do is we export two functions. Function number one, get static paths. What this does is it reads the folder in a nested way, gets every markdown file as a path, content/concept/branches, and just creates an array. That's it. And it exports this to Next.js and tells it, this is every possible path on your web page. Go to anything else and it'll be a 404. So that's get static paths. Get static props is when you have a specific path. So in this case here in the browser, I'm in /concepts/branches, right? So that's the path. And so when you have a definite path, what it's doing here is it's getting the slug from the path. Can you see that? Is my font size okay? Great. And what we're doing is we're reading that one file as text, and we pass it as props to a React component. And then if you know React, you just render the text that you're given as props. There's another function here called persist page to Zata for search. I'm not here to sell you Zata, but we do have a full text search engine that we just call this function, and people, like, you can literally hear. I can search the docs, I can type like workspace, and I get results, right? And I can even like have a typo in it, and our search engine has typo tolerance, and it's performant, and so why not? It was a quick win. So that's how our docs are fast. They are also, because of Next.js, deployed to an edge network. Obina is here from Cloudflare. He's going to be probably talking about that. But we've chosen static site generation for our docs. Static sites are just text files, just HTML. And the beauty of HTML is what? It's just text. It's stateless. And because it's stateless, you can just put it on any number of computers, and the state doesn't change because it's stateless. So then you can put it on 1 million different computers worldwide and serve it to your users close to them. It's faster. What's the alternative? Server-side rendering. You render on the server side. The problem with that is your server makes a network request maybe to a database, gets data, generates a page, and then serves you. So that network hop will slow you down. What's the alternative? Client-side rendering. You load an empty page, you see a spinner, and a request happens that costs you time. So static sites for this kind of thing are absolutely the fastest because everything changes in the repo. So we git push, boom, it updates. That's the strategy we've taken, and that's why we have this Lighthouse like 95. 95, even with videos. We have a lot of videos on our site. 95. So that's one way we're working at Zata to make things fast. Let's look at the slides. Next, our docs are up to date perennially. I hope you enjoy this raw keynote view without the fancy slide. Our docs are up to date. What does that mean? So our docs are a mix of guides, like handwritten, like in nice English with literature degrees, maybe, not really, and API reference. Our entire offering to the business, right, is an API. It's literally an API through which you can connect to it and store data, query data, search data. Our main product is an API. So it's really important that we have an API reference. Is everyone familiar with APIs, by the way? I don't want to assume anything. You've worked with APIs? Okay. So we need to have on-point API reference, and it needs to be up to date. How do we achieve this? At Zata, OpenAPI is a first-class citizen. What does that mean? Have you heard of OpenAPI, Swagger, right? It's a YAML way of describing a REST API. You write down every path on your API and every operation. So get, post, put, patch, delete, and then per status code you can list responses. So it's a long document. We have this, it's like almost 4,000 lines. But we use OpenAPI in a healthy way, I would say. I'm a bit biased, but here's how we use it. Everything starts with OpenAPI. It's like the foundation. So we have a long OpenAPI file. If somebody wants to add a feature to the backend API, what do? First thing, add it to OpenAPI. If somebody wants to consume the API, what do? So the OpenAPI is the foundation. And from the OpenAPI, we generate source code. We generate the backend API. So you can actually like generate Golang or Node.js or other languages. And Postman, who has a booth in the back here, Ari is here. And if you look at this page on Postman, you can literally like generate server code from OpenAPI for Go, Node.js, Java, Python. Like you just literally generate a full API. The business logic you fill in yourself, right? But from OpenAPI, you can just generate these things. And because of that, if we want to change the API, we start with OpenAPI. If we want to create a front end, we pull from OpenAPI. If we want to create the docs, it comes from OpenAPI. So our docs site is up to date because that thing drives everything. And that's how we're able to achieve up-to-date docs. So if we look over here on the screen, if you go to docs.zata.io/API/OpenAPI, this is public for everyone to see, and this is our OpenAPI document, right? And if I scroll to the bottom, how many lines is this thing? Let's see. It's 3,971 lines. So it's pretty big, but what we do is we have a list of paths, as you can see, right? And each path has a summary, a description, and then a HTTP method or a verb. And per method, you have responses by status code, 404, 200, so on and so forth. So we use this. It's a JSON object. Because it's JSON, we transform it a little bit, and we get this thing. This API reference is 100% generated from the OpenAPI spec. And I can click on anything. So I can click on, let's go to query table, right? This is a popular endpoint. And you see this looks a bit documentation-ish, right? I wrote none of this. It just comes from the API description. And because of that, when somebody wants to change the API with this, they start there and the docs just stay updated. But why stop there? See, I want to set a high bar to make sure this doesn't get messed up. So I said, let's maybe not stop there. So the OpenAPI project lives in a GitHub repo in Zata, okay? And if someone wants to change it, what do? They open a pull request. So I want to show you something. We have a pull request against our internal private OpenAPI repo that you're not actually supposed to see, but I love all of you, so just don't tell anyone. And what is this? So we add a description field to column. And when somebody opens a pull request here, we have a bot on GitHub that tells you, I don't know if you can read this, it tells you an API reference for this version of the spec can be previewed on our site at this link. And then there's 3 screenshots. There's what the API reference docs look like on main, what they look like on this PR, and a visual diff where it highlights just what changed, where you can look. So if I click this link right now and open the OpenAPI preview, this may take a while. Okay, yeah, it's fine. OpenAPI preview. What you see is a big header. Hey, careful, this is not main, this is not production, this is just a preview, right? And you can actually see the changes he made. And surely enough, there is a description here. So this looks good to me. I approve the pull request. The backend is generated. The front end consumes it. The docs are up to date. Everyone's in unison. That is how our API reference is up to date. And we're really proud of this. It just works. We're thankful for it. All right, let's go. Number 3. We want our docs to be impactful. I feel like you could have the best documentation in the whole world, but if people don't use it, if people don't benefit from it, what again is the point? Right? So we want our docs to be impactful. And I've read far too many docs where I didn't understand things. I'm just be honest with you. So how can we make sure our docs are having a reasonable impact? To do this, we need to realize that we are prone to make mistakes. I am prone to make mistakes. So because of that, let me show you 2 ways we're making our docs a bit more impactful at Zata. So if you go here, this is our doc site, as we talked about. And you can literally actually, this is a preview. You see that? Let's go to main. So literally anywhere you are, if you see something and you don't understand it, you can highlight it. So I don't know what API means, for example. I'm showing you a mistake we made. We didn't expand this acronym. There's no contextual link. It's a huge problem. So say I don't know what an API is. I'm new. I highlight, and what do I see? Please clarify this. And so, what does that even do? I click it. Let's take a look. We click it flagging, and it says here, very small. I don't know if you can see that. Thank you. We've notified the docs maintainers. We'll resolve it. But does anything happen? Docs right now is not yet open source. It probably will be. But let me show you what happens internally when that happens. So we go to github.com/zata.io/docs, and we check the issues. And look at this. 19 seconds ago, clarification from docs site. All right. Let's click on that. The issue, please clarify the following API on this page. Now, notice who opened the issue. Was it someone I'm going to judge? Oh, they just don't get it. No, I don't care who opens the issue, an inexperienced person, someone early in their career, someone, I don't care where they come from or what their experience is. If it's unclear to one, it's unclear to all. And so it's anonymous. I have notification that this is unclear, and someone on my team or me myself, I'll go fix this. And that's one way we measure that our docs actually make sense. So if we have none of these issues, we know we're doing a good job. Okay? Way number 2, let me show you another way. So that's one way. Second way is, say you're browsing through the site and something maybe looks a bit broken, right? It's a bit hard. No, but let's really mess up this page, right? Let's inspect it and just kind of go nuts. This don't make sense. Is that okay? So say for example there's some malformed data like this, right? Notice on every page, universally throughout the site, there's a little friend here. There's a feedback button. That's everywhere, and that's just not on the doc site. That's on almost everything we expose. So you click feedback, and you have a little form here where you can add a message. Page looks odd. And you can choose to share your name or not. If you do share your name, we'll follow up with you and say, hey, thank you, we fixed it, and we might send you some swag or something. But maybe you don't want to share that, that's cool. And then, here's what I want to show you. There's a little checkbox here for, thank you so much. It's human. I'm not nervous, okay? It's just hot anyway. So there's a little thing here that says include a screenshot. Okay? And when you click this, watch this. So it asks you, this is browser behavior. I didn't code, the Chrome has this built in. So it asks you, what do you want to share? This tab or another tab? Maybe you want to ask for help about something else or a window, your entire screen, and you can choose, right? And when you click share, it just takes a screenshot of where you are right now. Notice it says this don't make sense here. And so I click send, and it's uploading a giant screenshot. So there you go. And now if I go to the clarification, let me close this issue because it's not actually an issue for now. But if we go here, what we should see, again, feedback from DocSite, open now by me. And if we click it, page looks odd. Here's a screenshot. This don't make sense. And so our people can work with this. And not just us, but like when we open source this, the community can just help each other. It becomes a beautiful open source thing. For those of you wanting to start out in open source, you could benefit from this by seeing issues and being like, oh, I know what API means. I can help. It makes a way. And that is how we make sure our docs are impactful. They're not just one-way communication. Hey, so by the way, when you blockchain the API and crypto and Ethereum, good luck. Right? Like, it's not one way. It's a conversation. Okay? So that is the third way that we are making sure our docs are impactful. So I'm going to circle back now. Did you enjoy the demos? Was that fun? Thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about takeaways. As I said, I came here to be inspired. Believe you me, I am. But I'm also here to inspire. And I hope I've inspired you in some way already. If I have, tweet it maybe and at me. I don't know. But if not, there's still time. I've got some takeaways for you. I want you to, if you're able, leave here and think about these things. Because I really believe if you're either in DevRel or you're getting into DevRel, or maybe even you're just an engineer who's curious, whatever it may be, I feel like there's something here for everybody in your career. There certainly was for me. And by the way, all of this is not me like preaching, right? This is lived experience. I've experienced these things that I want to share with you, okay? So, number one, adopt a service mindset. I've seen the worst docs, and not just docs, the worst of the DevRel I've seen is when people, one, just feel like, no, they should just get it. I'm not going to explain. Are you kidding me? Everybody knows what API means. Can't have that. Can't have that. We have to serve. I've seen the greatest leaders be the best servants. You know what I'm saying? We need to understand, as a developer advocate, we advocate on behalf of the user and on behalf of the company. We're like in the middle. And we serve two masters in this case. We serve both. Service is key. Number two, set up, look, if this can sound like toxic productivity. That's not what I'm saying here. High is relative, but I would suggest setting a high bar where you're comfortable mental health-wise. You know what I'm saying? So don't burn out. Nobody wants that. But I do suggest thinking about the extra mile. Look, when we were creating this doc site, Nobody thought about, what happens if I highlight text? Can I clarify? Nobody thought about this, but it was within reach. It was a shower thought with value. And so I said, you know what, it's going to cost more time before we call this done, but let's do it. Let's do it so I can talk about it at a conference. No, let's do it so that people can be served. The screenshot thing, it wasn't an afterthought, but we try to go the extra mile and set a high bar because, hey, when you set a high bar, like if you reach for the moon, worst case, you land among the stars. You know what I'm saying? All right, number 3, reduce human error. Look, I'm a human being. I've made mistakes, my life, my career on this stage. That's what we do. And oftentimes for me, I learn from mistakes. I get better, but that doesn't mean I don't make mistakes, okay? I made a mistake maybe wearing 2 layers here, for example, but it's hot, these lights, man. But we take every opportunity to offload stuff to machines that are unit tested and can behave predictably because if I'm honest with myself, I cannot. So we take every opportunity to reduce human error. We offload the static site generation to something else. We offload the search to Zata. And we also account, by the way, for cases where there is human error, right? Like with this clarify this or feedback button. We know we can make mistakes, we're not perfect, and we embrace it and build in safeguards around it. So those are my 3 takeaways. OSCA Fest 2022. I want to say thank you for having me. I am so inspired. Woo! Thank you, thank you, thank you. Someone gonna come up? Oh, cool, you. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. As you were, because I've had my own past experiences with like documentation that makes you want to cry fire. And I've gone on social media ranted, but when it's something that you can't directly influence, either because it's a tool you're using or you don't work there or whatever, when you're done ranting, sure you will still go and find a way to use the project. So I feel like this is going to be very helpful for a lot of us for multiple reasons. So thank you so much for that talk. It was very important. Now, who's ready for a quick break? Or you want to continue? I should invite another speaker. You want a break? Yeah, so I'm about to invite Perry up to the stage. Perry, fantastic designer, Haze Monkey, NFT babe, everything. If you need to learn about Sakwa, please go and ask her, and all of that stuff. So she has like a game for all of us, and it's going to be very interesting. So Perry, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I think you guys should start getting used to the fact that if you see me here, then it means that the OSCA team is ready for the event to start trending on Twitter. So can we all stand up? Because I feel like you've been sitting for so long. So let's stand up. We all have our tags today, right? Is there anyone that doesn't have a tag? No, right? Good. First off, pick up your tags. Your tags. Turn to the back. To the back of your tag. We are going to be making 2 tweets, at least 2 tweets from every single member in this room, like right now. So pick up your tags, the back of your tags. You can find a barcode. Can we all, in the count of 3, scan the barcode and make that tweet? 1, 2, 3. Everyone, please scan the barcode, including speakers. Please scan the barcode and make that tweet. How many of us have made the tweet? I'm not seeing hands up. It's like our internet is slow. Have you all made the tweet? 2 more minutes for those that are using Glow. I mean, we're always very considerate, you know. Have you all made the tweet? Okay. Turn to your neighbor. Turn to your neighbor, say neighbor. Okay, take a selfie with your neighbor. A selfie with your neighbor. I need to see you connect. If I don't see you talking, I'll bring the mic to you. A selfie with your neighbor. Have you taken a selfie? Now let's go to Twitter. Make a tweet of yourself and your neighbor using our hashtag. Our hashtag is OSCA Fest 2022. Wow. These are hashtags. The picture you took, it's okay if you don't take pictures, please. If you're like Sultan here, just cover your face, right? But please use our hashtags and tag the OSCA official account at OSCA Africa. OSCA. Have you done that? You've done that? Me, I want to randomly ask, so. Let me come down here. Sorry, I want to randomly ask somebody. Hi, did you take a picture of your neighbor? Yeah. You did? 3 of you? Oh, all of you are interesting. Okay, now we've taken pictures with our neighbor, with one neighbor. Now let's take a selfie with as much people that our camera can capture. Everybody raise your phone. Raise your phone. Me, I want to take my own too. Your phone's up. A selfie. Make a tweet with that picture using our hashtags. Amachi, have we started trending? We will not eat today if we don't trend though. Amachi, somebody should check on Twitter. If we've not started trending, we'll do another one. If not, give them fire, give them. They need to know that over 500 people are gathered here in Lagos, Nigeria today. Take random pictures. Don't forget to use our hashtags, please. Very important. Okay, I see a lot of you connecting. That's good. One last time. The other neighbor that I did not take a picture with, take a picture with them. I'm not seeing Adora and Kiran take any picture. Take a picture with your partner. Please take a picture with, turn to the other side, turn to the other side. Take a picture with the neighbor beside you. Make a tweet. Amarachi, is my job done? No. Okay, we can sit down. Thank you very much. So remember from yesterday, right? We had one game. Who remembers the game? I can give you the mic, right? Okay, they are still having fun. Are we all seated? So the winner of this game actually have a swag pack from the OSCA team. What you're just going to do is recreate a picture that was taken in 2020 and then create one for 2022. I mean, we saw Uche come up here to tell us his journey from 2020 and how much growth he has actually had over the years, right? So we just need to see that growth in pictures. I saw a picture yesterday it was really, really funny because the growth in 2 years, they went from being devs to tech bros. God, when? So please, take a picture, just recreate something from the drive or something from 2020, and then just take a 2022 version. Always tag OSCA and use our hashtags. We have a gift for the person with the highest impression. Now today I want to show you a new game that we have for you. This one, I think a couple of you have seen it. Everybody has seen it outside, but maybe was not sure what that was. How many of us saw the photo booth outside? The future is with a white. We saw it, right? So what we are supposed to do with that photo booth during break is to go outside. Oh yeah. Is to go outside and write whatever you think the future is for you. I mean, I think I wrote decentralized. For me, I think the future is decentralized. So for you, just go outside. A marker will be outside with some volunteers. You just write whatever you think the future is for you. I also took a picture of myself because the future is Perry. So just have fun with this space, right? But that will happen during break. Don't forget to use our hashtags. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Perry. Thank you so much. I mean, for me, the future is filled with dollars and enjoyment. Who is with me, please? I don't understand what's going on at the back. SS3 boys in the back. SS3 boys. Sorry, what's the future? What is the future? The future is what? The future is dollars. I love it. The future is what? Future is money. Future. Someone said the future is Benjamin Franklin. Okay. Yeah. So, like Perry has said, during break, as some people will be here, at the booth, you can also be downstairs taking pictures and writing what you think the future is. I mean, for me, I'm going to write that the future is filled with enjoyment, money, and more money, right? So I am going to be introducing our next speaker. Quickly, please, if you are at the back, please find somewhere to sit and be quiet. Thank you. SS3 boys. So I'm going to be introducing our next keynote speaker. He is the CEO of Coil. Please be clapping now. Have you been CEO before? Think it's easy. He's the CEO of Coil, and he's going to be talking to us about building open source systems, global payments. I mean, Coil is that open technology business that allows, people do web monetization, meaning that if you are a content creator like me and many others, and you want to find a way to monetize any kind of content that you have on the internet, on your website, on your YouTube channel, you want to monetize your blog and stuff like that, web monetization is a place that you can start from. And I'm going to just quickly say a few words about Stefan Thomas, who is the CEO. He's the founder and president of Coil, a San Francisco-based startup that wants to create a better business model for the web. Prior to Coil, Stefan was a prominent figure in the blockchain movement. As an early Bitcoin contributor, he produced the popular What is Bitcoin video, introducing millions of users to Bitcoin, and created Bitcoin.js, the first implementation of Bitcoin cryptography in the browser. As CTO and one of the first employees at Ripple, Stefan built new protocols for cross-border payments, now used by banks all over the world. Please, have you built something that banks all over the world are using before? Please, can you be clapping for this man? Thank you. He has also worked with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to develop Moja Loop, an open source national payment switch that connects mobile wallets in developing markets. Everyone, Please give it up for Stefan Thomas.
Hello, thanks for tuning into my talk. My name is Stefan Thomas. I'm the founder and CEO of Coil, and my talk is about the intersection between open source and payments. A little bit about my background. I was one of the early developers of Bitcoin, and I later joined a company called Ripple, where I was the chief technology officer. They're also a blockchain-based company. So today I want to talk about both how open source technologies can improve payments, how we can use open source to make payments more easy, but also how payments can help with open source. And I actually want to start there, kind of thinking about how open source projects are funded. So, of course, a lot of open source projects are just a labor of love. I've myself created a lot of open source projects that I never got paid for. And I think that's probably a good chunk of the open source world is there's just no funding at all. Or people are just kind of funding it with their time and their free time to make that project a reality. Oftentimes, I would, and I think most people will create open source projects just to scratch their own itch. They have a problem, they solve it, and they're just nice enough to share the code. Kind of a further example of that, or the next step from that is you might have a company, and that company might write software that they decide to share as open source. So one example would be something like Facebook, who developed React, and then they shared it with the community. And there might be some benefit in that for Facebook. They might have an easier time recruiting engineers, something like that. Of course, some companies go even further than that, where the open source project that they sponsor is really core to what they're doing. So that would be something like a Red Hat or a MongoDB, where they kind of sell services and other things around the open source project. And because they are the ones who are doing a lot of the development, they obviously understand that project better than anyone. And so they're able to sell that to clients. Of course, there's limitations to that, which is that doesn't work for every project. There's kind of a related model, which is the Open Source Foundation. I myself was part of the JavaScript Foundation board, and that became later merged with the Node.js Foundation. And I remember from that experience that, for some projects that works really well. A lot of the kinds of projects that you see that are well supported by open source foundations are kind of the bigger projects. Often they have sort of enterprise use cases. Examples would be the Linux Foundation, the Apache Software Foundation, the Eclipse Foundation. So these are all big projects with lots and lots of moving pieces that are used by big companies. And so those companies want to make sure that the project is well supported because they're going to rely on that technology. And that's often a theme, is like when you have companies that are using open source projects, then they suddenly they care about making sure that those projects are well maintained. In the case of the JavaScript Foundation that I was part of, a lot of the projects were kind of smaller, and it was much harder to kind of figure out how to allocate that support. So companies would come to us and they'd support the JavaScript Foundation, basically saying like, hey, we build a lot on JavaScript, and a lot of the projects that are part of the JavaScript Foundation are projects that we rely on, but it still doesn't tell us necessarily how to divvy up the funds, how much to support different projects. And of course, we only had limited bandwidth, so there's only so many projects that we can take on board. And so a lot of projects started to go out and they started to try to solve the problem themselves. So, some projects would go to things like Open Collective, which is a platform kind of like Patreon or something like that, where you can support projects directly and projects can collect money from their users. And again, that's kind of very nice because anyone can do that, any project can sign up to that. But the problem with that is, a lot of times you have a project that we are working on, and it has a lot of dependencies. Like I have a JavaScript front-end project that has more than 1,000 dependencies. So am I going to go and look up all 1,000 dependencies and try to figure out which, projects have an open collective and how to contribute to that? And if people use like 20 different services to collect those funds, am I going to sign up with all of those services? So it gets hard to manage very quickly given the number of open source projects that there are, the number of packages that we use as developers all the time. And so how do you kind of manage that There's one company that has a really interesting approach. It's called Flossbank. And what they do basically is they take your project and they scan its dependencies and they distribute the funds for you. And this is really, again, meant for companies that want to make sure that the projects that they build on are funded. And so rather than going through manually and trying to figure out which projects to support, Flossbank kind of optimizes that process for them, automates it. And of course, more recently, we've seen like a completely different approach for supporting open source, which is this whole world of cryptocurrencies and blockchain, because a lot of those projects are open source. And so they will create a token or something like that, and then they'll use some of the proceeds of the token to fund the development. And with that, it's been a really powerful model in one sense, namely it's raised huge amounts of money. You see suddenly these open source projects that are just, barely an idea or anything, they're barely a white paper, and suddenly they raise like $1 billion through a token offering. And so you're kind of, what's going on with that? My personal experience with that, I was a Bitcoin developer back in 2010. And one of the things I noticed back then was there were definitely people who were getting rich off of Bitcoin, but it wasn't necessarily the developers. So a lot of times it was people who had been mining a lot of Bitcoin or just bought a bunch of Bitcoin, and they were getting a lot of money. But then you had some people who were developers who were working full-time on Bitcoin, but they didn't necessarily have a lot of money to put towards it, and they didn't have time to also be involved in mining. And so they didn't end up making as much money. And so it was pretty uneven distribution of how the funding was spread out. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes it felt like there wasn't even enough money to really fund the development. And so people had to, again, kind of use their free time to try to keep the lights on with the Bitcoin network. So I think now it's growing to a point where that's less of an issue, but of course, not every project can be as big as Bitcoin. So it's not really a model that's very scalable. Later on, as I mentioned, I joined Ripple, where there was like an actual company. So maybe that's a little bit closer to something like the Red Hat model or something like that, where you have an open source project and there are lots of different components and there's an ecosystem, other developers and so on. But there's still also a company that sort of heavily relies on that technology. And so if all else fails, like they all continue to be able to fund some development and so on to keep the project going. But one thing I noticed about that model, so you have kind of a company and a token, or sometimes it's a foundation and a token. The problem is that these tokens are competing with each other. And so something that I was really not used to in the open source space was that people would start to be very adversarial. So, people would say like, hey, I'm working on this token. I mean, you might not outright say it, but they're sort of like, because you're working on the wrong token, they suddenly won't talk to you, or something like that. And that was very strange to me. That was not something I was used to. I think it's maybe getting a little bit better now that there are more projects out there and people are a little bit more used to, you can't just, kind of exclude everyone who's not working on the right token ecosystem. But it was definitely in the early days when in the early days of crypto, it felt very adversarial. Like if you were working on the wrong project with the wrong philosophy, people would just not talk to you, not want to talk to you. Even people that I was very close friends with when I was working on Bitcoin were suddenly not talking to me when I was working on XRP. And definitely that's stuck with me because I'd never experienced anything like that working on, web technologies or in the JavaScript community or just generally in the open source community, because it's much more collaborative. If I develop something cool and you can use it, you might just copy it, and vice versa. If I see something in your project I think is really cool, I might take that into my project, and so it's very collaborative. And then of course, because there's so much money to be made in the crypto space, there are also a lot of bad actors, like people that just they realize like a lot of times the money is paid up front, right? Like there's a new token or something like that, and everyone wants to get in early. And so the token goes up very quickly. And then instead of actually maintaining the project and doing the hard work, people just take the money and then they stop working on the project. And that's happened quite a lot in the crypto space. And then, it's sort of, I'm left with this feeling that like, why is this all so complicated? Like I really enjoy open source software because of the freedoms that it gives me. Like if I want to understand how something works, I can look at the code. If I want to feel more confident that there's no security issues. I can have somebody review the code. It just feels so much better if you have the code available. Sometimes, you even go in and you make an improvement and you contribute it back, and it's just so much easier than trying to convince some company that they should fix the bug that you particularly are interested in. And so I want to enjoy all the benefits of open source, and I'm perfectly happy to contribute back to the people who are maintaining these projects. So why is this so difficult? I don't need it to be like this big speculative investment in hype machine that, like a token. I just want to pay some money to use good software. So when I first got into crypto, really what I was looking for was a way that was cheap and easy to move money around. I had been a freelancer making websites for many years, and so I kind of realized that a lot of times when you're moving internationally, or depending on which country you live in, it can be very difficult to send and receive money internationally, and the fees can be quite high. And so I thought that was always a little bit strange, because at the end of the day, money is just bits and bytes. So why is it any more expensive to move money around than it is to send a message or write an email? Nowadays that I understand a little bit more about how payments works, I do realize that there is a little bit more to it than just communication. But at the same time, like some places are a lot cheaper than others, and so there's still kind of a big disparity in terms of like how much it costs to move money in and out of certain places. And so certainly all of that is not necessarily justifiable just based on purely the technology or the constraints of the problem. And so I always wondered, like, if we used to have a pretty inefficient communication system. Like, I don't know, how many people are old enough to remember when, like, text messages were like several dollars. I actually don't know if that's still the case in some places, but certainly in where I used to live until recently in the U.S., like, texting is now pretty much free because of competition from things like WhatsApp. But for a long time, it was everything but free. Like making a phone call from a cell phone or sending a text message was very expensive. And I think it was really the popularity of the internet that forced telecommunications companies to lower their prices because, like I said, you can suddenly send messages over the internet for almost nothing. And so it's hard to charge people huge fees for text messages. I actually remember there was a funny anecdote someone showed me, which is like per byte, it was actually more expensive to send a text message than to talk to the Voyager probe. So it's actually so expensive per byte to send a text message that it's like more expensive. There's a much harder problem of talking to this space probe that's really far away from Earth. So anyway, somehow it got a lot cheaper. And when you study the internet and the history of the internet, you start to realize why. For when I first got into crypto and blockchain, I was hoping that would be the solution. I was thinking that the problem was kind of these companies that are sitting in the middle and they charge a big fee, and that's where the cost comes from. But if anything, if you look at blockchain now, all these years later, it's not really made payments that much more efficient. If anything, like, it's gotten more fragmented. There's now all these new currencies that are all new ways of moving money, but they're all not connected to each other. And some of them are quite expensive. Some of them right now have fees that are even higher than the traditional payment methods that we were trying to improve upon. And some of that might be fixable in terms of like just the scalability of how many transactions a given protocol can process. But I also realized while I was working on Bitcoin in particular, that it was very difficult to make changes to these systems. And so if you have a system and it gets very widely adopted and more people rely on it, it gets harder to make changes to it. It becomes higher and higher stakes. And so I could sort of foresee that at some point the development of these systems would sort of get slower and slower and slower. And what happens when development gets slower, eventually it can't keep up with technology, right? Like people come up with better ways of doing various things, but if the system can't be updated, can't be upgraded easily, it falls behind that technology. And so that's not really what you want for a global system, right? Like you want the system to keep up with technology and get better and better, especially if you want that end result of everything getting super cheap and to the point where it's like not even something we think about. And so crypto didn't really achieve that. And so eventually I started to think about the differences between the internet, which seems to make everything really efficient, and crypto, where I didn't get that same feeling. I didn't get the sense that it was like this extreme drive towards efficiency. And so I tried to understand what the difference was. And I think the biggest difference between those two approaches is that with the internet, they really tried to make it as simple as possible and very unopinionated, in the sense that, you know, the internet protocol doesn't tell you if you should use Wi-Fi or Ethernet or LTE. It just bridges the differences between all of those different underlying technologies. And it even supports like future ones that haven't even been invented yet. So for example, if I come up with some really cool new protocol that can send data over far distances very quickly, well, all I need to do is I need to have a way to encapsulate an internet packet, and suddenly anyone who connects using this new technology is on the internet at a really good speed. And so, you know, the emergence of like cell phone data and things like that were very smooth transitions, because they could just add all of that to the internet, and suddenly it has access to all the same websites and all the same services that someone with, let's say, a fiber connection has access to. And so that's a very powerful approach, because it's very future-proof. And the other thing that it's very good for is kind of solving for edge cases. So, you know, if there's a use case that not a lot of people are interested in, and they're sort of all over the world and they're pretty dispersed, then they're not going to build their own infrastructure. So imagine the internet didn't exist. You're not going to build a global network just to talk about, you know, classic cars, you know. But if you have all this infrastructure of the internet, what you can do is, for whatever your use case is, you can just use the infrastructure of the internet and just build your own software that uses that same infrastructure. And so when you look at that approach, you can see why that makes it so efficient, because anybody who can find any way to improve it, some internet service provider that can charge a little bit less, people will switch to them. Anyone who can find a way to squeeze a little bit more bandwidth out of a connection, people will use that and adopt that technology over time. And there isn't much that you have to sort of globally upgrade. There is some things that you have to globally upgrade. So a lot of you might be familiar with the transition from IPv4 to IPv6, where that's a big project and it's still ongoing, and it's been going on for decades. And it will probably continue to go on for decades, because it is so hard to change a system that big. But again, the brilliance of the internet is that that has to happen very rarely. And so the question is, can you apply that same architecture, the same principles, to payments and moving money around? And, you know, I looked into that problem for about 7-8 years now, and I came to a conclusion: yes, you can. And the protocol that does that we developed is called Interledger. And so it's a lot like the internet, except instead of sending little packets of data around, it sends packets of money around. And otherwise it works a lot the same way, in that it doesn't really tell you what the underlying technology should be. It could be running on top of mobile money, or it could run on top of a blockchain, or it could run on top of banks, or whatever you want. Like, you know, even technologies that haven't even been invented yet for moving money, Interledger could run on top of those. At the same time, it doesn't tell you what you should use it for, right? So any use case that involves moving money around, in principle, you should be able to build it on Interledger. And so what that means is that if Interledger becomes very popular, we'll have, just like we have an open global communication system in the internet, we'd have an open global payment system. Now, one of the things that's different about payments than communication is that there are obviously big differences in different countries. And so you see, like, some countries, like for example El Salvador, is like going all in on crypto, and other countries have outright banned crypto. And so you need a system that can handle these different technologies, so that it can be a truly global system. So the interoperability standard, something like Interledger, it has to be very flexible and very neutral in terms of what people actually use. And then, you know, what you end up with something like that is something that's just fundamentally more inclusive and more global. More inclusive because if I have a way to connect some more people into the network, I don't have to get anyone's permission. I don't have to do anything. I just connect to the nearest peering point, just like the internet. You peer to get onto the network, and then everyone in that area is now online. course, all of this sounds great in theory, but how do you actually build a system like this in the real world? And so I started a company called Coil, and we sort of are driving towards a first example use case using Interledger, which is called web monetization. And I'll explain very quickly how that works. So web monetization basically is, it's a browser extension, and then as you go around to different websites, your browser will pay the website a small amount of money. So every website you go to, your browser will pay a little bit. We've made 61 billion payments so far. So that's quite a large number, given especially that we don't have a huge number of users yet. But it's not a huge dollar amount. The payments can be quite small. We can have payments as small as 1/100 of a cent. Which is kind of something that you can't really do on credit card networks. You can't even really do it on most popular blockchains, certainly not at the scale of like 30 billion. And that's because, a lot of times the way most blockchains work is everybody has to hear about every transaction. And so that's just a very different architecture than how Internet and Interledger work, where you just have a path, and then anyone along the path needs to hear about the transaction. So what's next for Interledger? It's great that we have this web monetization use case, and that's what people can play around with right now, and you can sign up and you can try it out. But obviously, Interledger could be used for a lot of other things too. So there's so much more that you can do with this technology. And so what we want to do in the next months, years, is we want to enable other people to build other things on top of Interledger and make that easier. And so we're building a new open source project called Rafiki. It's basically a full stack implementation of Interledger. It's sort of like, if you think about TCP/IP, there was this library called the Berkeley Socket Library, and that really made it easy to build things with TCP/IP. There was Apache Web Server, which made HTTP accessible to a lot more people. So a lot of times when you have a protocol, there's sort of a breakthrough implementation, which just makes it much easier to adopt the protocol because you don't have to build everything from scratch, and it has sort of sensible, easy to use APIs. And so that's something that we're working towards right now, and hopefully that will roll out sometime this year. And once that's out there, it should really enable Interledger to be used for a wide variety of use cases, not just web monetization, but if you want to send money to somebody, or you want to build a wireless mesh network, or you want to have an API where people pay for every API call, or whatever you can imagine that involves sending money, particularly if you want to send very small amounts of money, great distances, to other places in the world. Or if your use case requires something that's very latency sensitive, so something where the transaction goes through in milliseconds, Interledger is probably the technology that you should look at. If you want to try it out today, I would recommend looking at web monetization. So you can find information about that on webmonetization.org. And also, my company would put together a bunch of resources at developers.coil.com. And so with that, I would say thanks for listening. I'm really excited to hear some of your questions and feedback. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much. Where's my phone? So now we're going to be moving on to the next speaker quickly. I'm trying so hard to know how to pronounce this name because I don't want to spoil it. So I don't know. I'm going to quickly introduce our next speaker, who is an open source contributor at Layer 5. And briefly, I would say some things about them. So she, is an active open source contributor helping to organize events in the community with the organizing team at Layer 5 and helping to improve user experience and open products at Open United. A passionate preacher of the open source gospel, Shibel is also a visual designer, ex-front-end developer, and associate product manager. talk to him about building super cool, welcoming, engaging, healthy, and sustainable open source communities. Why? Because these are where his interests currently lie. So yeah, he's going to be talking about how to break into product management with open source. So I want to just quickly ask, are there any PMs here today? Are there any product managers here today at all? Are there any, I hate this word, I'm about to use it, but it's fine. Are there any aspiring product managers here today? I love it. So pay attention to this talk. Thank you.
Is it working? Hello. Hi. So Edidion said when I say hello, the nervousness would go. Well, it's still there. So it's my first time speaking at a public event and at OSCA. So it's also my first time at OSCA. So we're going to be talking about breaking into product management with open source. So a little bit about myself. I'm an open source contributor at Layer 5 and I also contribute at Open United also. I served as an associate product manager at Code Inclusive and I'm also a visual designer. I think there's a current conversation around product management being had on Twitter recently. And many people still think it's relatively easy because their journeys are different. And we understand that. But the truth is that the road to becoming a product manager can often be long and unpredictable. I don't know if anyone agrees with me. Yes. And if we look at it, a lot of persons are beginning to think product management is quite easy compared to developing, coding, and designing screens. Is that correct? And if we also look at it, if you're trying to apply for roles, what do they tell you? 2 to 3 years experience. Where do you get that from? And then there's this scenario. You need experience to get this job. I'm applying to get experience. It's a go get a job so you can get experience. That's why I'm applying here now. They say you cannot work here if you don't have experience. It's quite funny, but it brings a lot of people down. And so many people have sent in several applications, over 1,000 applications, just to apply for entry-level product management roles. And so there are several ways many people try to break into product management. And I think many of us know these 4 ways. Internal transition at a large company. Many people transition internally at their company from their present role. And how do they do that? They must have shown that they have certain skills that can help the company, help them transition into that role. And there must be a manager who must speak for you, who must advocate for you that this person is actually fit to take this role and can also learn on the job. People also transition by joining a large company as junior PMs. And we know this also. However, these companies, for them to take you as junior PMs, they need to have associate product management programs or internship programs where you can get to learn on the job as you move. People also join startups with burning need. And at startups, you need to have this burning desire. You need to connect with startup founders so that they can put you up. They need to see this hustle that you really can deliver if you're put on that task. People also start their side projects, which sometimes become their own company. And they end up becoming the product managers on that company, not necessarily the CEO. And so, a very experienced product manager stated in one of our articles that the main way product managers are brought up is through on-the-job experience. Do we agree with this? Can you learn product management on your own without the experience? No. And another very experienced product manager on open source products said that few people are taking advantage of what is possibly the most underutilized part to practical product management experience. What is that part? Open source. Why do people get entry-level roles? Or why are they APM programs or internship programs for product managers? The essence of getting an entry-level product management role is to actually introduce you to the discipline of product management, get you to understand what it actually means to be a product manager, and build up your confidence as you build with the team. At the same time, you're expected to deliver value. You're not just there to learn, but to also deliver value as you move. Now, I want to believe that a lot of product managers here actually agree with me that these are like about 6 of the core product management activities. The product vision, strategy, discovery of problems and validation, problem prioritization, deliveries, solution delivery and validation, and then execution. However, in between all of these, or under all of these, we have other tactical product management activities. Now the question is, how much of the product management discipline is the responsibility of a first-time product manager? Many product managers believe, entry-level product managers or first-time product managers, believe that they do not have business with the product vision. Yes, an entry-level product manager cannot set the vision for a product. However, all of these disciplines is part of the work a product manager, an entry-level product manager needs to be involved in. But how? In smaller and less risky quantities. So that way it can learn fast and also contribute value to the team. And an open source product can use a lot of these product management tools and skills of a product manager, such as strategy, user research, linking the strategy to work that needs to be done, and general decision facilitation. Under strategy, you get to ask certain questions like, how does this solve a key problem for the people we are building for? And under research, how are people using this product? And what does it solve for them? So these skills, among many others, are what an open source project or product can actually use. But when breaking into product management in open source, if you try to bring in your skill and say, okay, I have taken several courses from Coursera, taken courses from Udemy, I've gotten entry-level product management course certification, and you say you want to start working on an open source project directly with those skills, it will be quite difficult because open source projects are actually different. However, for you to be able to contribute well to an open source project as a product manager who is just getting into the space, you need to express your skills as questions. Questions such as, what problem is being explored? What opportunity is being explored? How is this solution, this project, being framed to tackle this problem? Who are people using this product, this our solution? How are they getting to know about it? How are they getting to use it? What is their experience so far? How are they learning about it? Are there people who want to contribute on this project? How are they getting them involved in contributing on this project? Do these projects have accessibility requirements? Do we understand them and are we meeting them? So when you list out certain questions after looking at the project, then you can pick the ones that resonate with the team after discussing with them, and then they can now become priorities which the team or the community will explore. Now, after looking at this large number of questions, after looking at the project, then you can use these questions, map them out into your tools which you use, such as Lean Canvas, the Value Proposition Canvas, your user persona, customer journey maps, and several tools that are relevant to that particular problem you're trying to solve. And at that point, you can pay attention to the experience of the users also. How would it feel when you have gone through this process and this actually helps you to build experience and you can put it in your portfolio to present to a recruiter? Would that not go a long way to present you well? So I joined Open United and I was invited by a senior product manager at Miro to contribute to the product. It's actually a very new platform that has lots of products where people can actually contribute to. And because it is new, the vision of this product is to actually create a platform where people with several skills such as developers, designers, and product managers can come in and build their skill using this platform, because there you get to see open products where you can contribute to based on your level and your experience so far. So how do you find open source projects to contribute to as a product manager who is just getting into this space? There are open source product manager communities such as Mind the Product, we have Product School, and we have several other ones. Product managers know their communities. So when you get into your communities, ask specific questions. If you're willing to contribute to open source projects, ask questions such as, are there open source projects that you can contribute to as a new product manager who has so skills, or this skill or that skill? I'm sure they'll be very willing to help. There are also product managers working at larger open source companies such as GitLab, Mozilla, and the rest. We can reach out to them, ask them where and areas you can contribute as a product manager. And we also have open source advocates and developer relations strategists, developer engineers, developer relation engineers who are working at open source companies. I'm sure they will have very good open source projects or refer you to open source projects who might need your help. We also have open source companies that are on Angel List, and we have product owns. Product managers know product owns. There you can find open source products where you can also contribute to. And also local meetups and open source conferences like this can also help you. So while starting out in open source, I read Ruth's article, and she gave nice tips on how to start as an open source product, as an open source beginner. One thing is to do your research on the project, do your research on the community and the organization before joining the community. And when you do, ask clear questions. And when you finally decide to join the community, try to be active by introducing yourself and stating areas where you can contribute. Everything you contribute to an open source project becomes a powerful record of your development as a product manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Shebuel, for that awesome presentation. Did you guys miss me? Did you guys really miss me? Wow, haters. Some people, well, we know ourselves. Our next speaker will be coming to speak to us about or concerning growing with open source. I'm actually so impressed with, the speakers and their topics. Omo, if you did not grow before this event, you will grow as you're leaving the door. It's very good. So please join me as I welcome on stage Khadija Ladan.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I will lie, I'm a little bit nervous because this is the largest event I've ever spoken at. So my name is Khadija Laden, front-end developer, and I'm an avid supporter of communities. So I'm a lead for a chapter of She Code Africa. I'm part of the organizers for GGG Bida. We have a JavaScript Mina community in Niger State, Mina. So I'm coming all the way from Niger State. This is my first time in Lagos, but I'm telling you, yesterday, Lagos traffic won, Khadija 0. But yeah, it's good. It's good to be here. So I'm here to talk about growing with open source. So a lot of people have come here, they're all like 10x devs. I'm not a 10x dev, so I'm talking from the perspective of people that are just starting out. So we're just coming in and everything. So tutorial hell. So this is the first hurdle you come across whenever you start. So it's like you've reached a point where you're interested in tech. You've gotten all those people that tell you tech is interesting, tech has money, and all those things. So you've learned JavaScript, you've learned Python, you've done to-do list apps, you've done counter apps, you've done, you've done stuffs with Matplotlib, you've followed some things on Kaggle, all those Kaggle examples for Python. You've gone to Pinterest boards and tried to copy some designs you saw there. You've got on Hashnode and seen some articles. You're there. But then at that point, you're like, what next? You reach a point where you're going in a loop. It's like, okay, I'm trying to do this exactly how the video does it, which is like, but I didn't like the video. Because when you decide to start your own project, you try to copy what you saw in the video on YouTube or like the articles on Dev2 and Medium. But the people that are actually writing the articles and the people with the videos, they are developers that have, like, they're professionals. They have already tested this